Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Is one of the most iconic venues in all of sports and the undisputed home of endurance racing. Welcome everyone to Apex Racing TV's coverage of the third round of the Penguin RC Simulation iRTES series live from Le Mans. I am Sam Fitzpatrick and I have Apex Racing Academy driver and Daytona 24-hour LMP2 winner Owen Cowell alongside me for this 3-hour event we are bringing you this afternoon. Owen, this place, sure we had PESC at the weekend, and that's usually very good. It is a decent sprint circuit, but this venue comes into its own when it comes to these endurance races. It's absolutely iconic for it, the history, but also to drive as well, to plug away hour after hour at this very unique circuit. There's very few things like it in all of sim racing.
Yeah, indeed. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Le Mans. And yeah, as you said, it's the home of endurance racing with these Le Mans prototypes, being built especially for this track, and with the GT3s alongside as well. It's going to be definitely one to watch with the endurance format, with the 4-hour long race that we have here today at Le Mans. And I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, we're just starting qualifying at the moment. The drivers will have 15 minutes to set 3 lap times in this qualifying session, and then we'll get into the 3-hour race where, of course, there'll be pit stops at play. Shouldn't be really any cautions or anything, but still plenty of strategy will be playing out for the drivers tonight. And well, we've already got a couple of rounds in the books as well. We've already visited Daytona, another classic venue, particularly when it comes to North American sports car racing, and Fuji as well. And I feel like not a whole lot different necessarily this circuit. I mean, they're very much getting the slipstream circuits out of the way, I feel like, this season, because those are 2 extremely high-speed circuits, and we visit another one here where you got to trim out that rear wing as much as possible for that straight-line performance.
Yeah, indeed. I was speaking to David Anderson, one of the co-owners of this league as well, last time out in Fuji, and he mentioned that the track selection this season was picked for that tailored need. Really, you have a bunch of tracks with long straights and tracks with kind of technical sections like we saw at Fuji as well, which is a really great combination of tracks. It really experiments with the driver's taste in their tracks and can really bring out some skills that some people lack in others. Like something like Daytona or Le Mans may suit one driver, but something like Fuji or Watkins or something like that, more technical circuits, may suit another. So it's really tailored to different needs, and it makes for a great championship season.
Now just starting their first few laps. So the LMDHs are at least, and the track completely clear for these drivers as well. Pablo Espas we're watching at the moment. few times might start popping up, but I believe they are outlaps, yeah, they will not be too representative in the near future. But when it comes to the championship so far this season, like I said, 2 rounds already in the books for these guys, and it's the LMDH category which is the closest so far. LMP2s and GTDs, we've already had the same 2 winners win the first 2 rounds of the championship. But for the LMDHs, it has been unpredictable so far this championship. Obsidian, they are leading the way. They managed to take the win last time out, and therefore were able to take the lead, but still very much close behind with RD Simsport and Penguin RC Simulation in 2nd and 3rd. So yeah, really anyone's to play for there, and no one really putting their proper foot on the championship so far.
Yeah, indeed. It's great to see how close the championship is as well, with the last time out in Fuji, of course, iRTES in Sport 2 getting that unfortunate kind of post-race penalty at the very end there, which dropped them down into 2nd place behind Obsidian Racing Future. Moving on to LMP2 as well, you have Tempest Simsport, number 11 car that is pretty much 10 points ahead and fairly unbeatable at the minute for in terms of these first 2 rounds, going back-to-back wins so far. At Daytona and Fuji as well, followed by 104 sort of right behind, and CMHQ follows closely, but only 2 points behind them, with Longhorn Racing 2 as well, followed closely behind as well. So it's all to play for in the top 2, but yeah, Tempest isn't out of reach for sure. Moving on to GT3 as well, we have a fairly close championship as well, our biggest category here as well, with yeah, an array of cars here, array of different cars with BMWs, Porsches, and all the GT3s have to offer as well. With RD Sport 4 as well taking the lead by 8 points. RD Sport having a very good kind of class range in here as well. Then the H is right at the top as we have 2 Pi Racing Team Atabi with 60 points following them. 10% Sport 101 with 60 points. Sim Racing PR 58 points. It's all to play for in that top, top all categories really. It's super close throughout the whole entire field, and yeah, it's all to play for in each and every round. So every point counts, and I'm sure our drivers today will be thinking about that championship no matter where they are.
Yeah, and with the point system we have for this championship, it's very different to what you have in WEC, where there's quite a steep fall-off. Instead, in this series, winner gets 35 points, then second gets 32, then 30, 28, 26, 25, 24, 23, and so on. So it's those consistent results, and you know, we say it all the time, are absolutely fundamental, and it's very tricky to make up points if you have a poor round, especially seeing that it's only 6 rounds. But if you're finishing 10th in one of those rounds, it's going to take you a lot of race wins in order to get yourself back up there. So yeah, hammering in those podium results can be absolutely fundamental. I will apologise. I said earlier on, oh, the drivers are just on outlaps at the moment. Of course they're not, because it's a lone qualifying session. So they start at the end of the lap. And so that first lap times were very representative. And at the moment, it is Penguin RC Simulation at the top of the standings. Of course, big thanks to Penguin for sponsoring the series, as I say that, maybe a bit of a curse there because Obsidian goes to the top. But Penguin not only entering a couple of cars, and of course they keep on going down the order, come on guys, they are also the sponsors as well for this series, the title sponsors. And if you want to get upgrades for your racing simulator, Penguin are absolutely a good place to go to. They are offering button boxes and also buttons for your steering wheel, and also transmission controls as well, with you know, add-on paddles as well for your wheel rim, and that's compatible with SimuCube, with Fanatec, and also interestingly Virtual Racing School as well, who of course recently released their own wheel rim, and yeah, they can work, Penguin can work with any of those brands. So big thanks to them for supporting the series, making this broadcast possible, and yeah, of course entering a few teams as well, and well, at the moment just 7/10 of a second off pole position in the LMDHs.
Yeah, indeed. It's good to see him right at the front as well. They're only, of course, 8 points behind the championship leader, being Obsidian Racing Future, who is currently sitting in P2 at the minute. And yeah, for them, the HST time's going to keep getting quicker. I believe that the qualifying, mode in these cars will start to wear out, be pretty much towards the end of this lap here that they're going on now. So we might see this being the quickest times that they're going to set as well. And it's RD Sport with Archie Governey leading the way so far, who last time out in Fuji picked up a P3, which yeah, was fairly comfortable for them last time out. Didn't have too many issues throughout the race. It was more the battle between RD Sport 2 and the Obsidian Racing Future that was the main fight with them. But Good to see Archie at the very top, and as we cut to 10% Sport as well, who are sitting on pole position for LMP2 with a 3:31.114, followed by around about a 2.5 attempts gap to SimHQ Motorsports Red, with Penguin RC Simulation, as you just spoke of, Sam having a car in all different classes as well, being 0.68 off pole position as well. But these times are going to get quicker, with LMP2 obviously getting faster as the stint goes on as well. So expect these times to get a little bit faster towards the end of qualifying.
And when it comes to the racing later on, when it comes to these like prototype cars, we've got so used to like slipstream trains. Obviously, we saw it in Pesk at yesterday. Are we going to see slipstream trains in the prototypes as well? Do you think, Owen, or do you not think the slipstream effect in these cars is strong enough for that to take place?
Well, for sure, we're going to see some slipstreams down the main straights here for LMP2s. The LMP2 slipstream is fairly heavy, so you can really get right onto the back of your opponent in front of you from around like 3 or 4 attempts in front. So we should hopefully see a lot of people getting involved in the mix with battling with the slipstream as well. Not so much for LMDH. The slipstream in LMDH isn't that strong, and it's mainly down to your battery deployment that determines your kind of quote-unquote slipstream behind the car in front of you as well. So if you have it in attack mode behind the car in front of you from around 3 or 2 attempts, then yes, you can get possibly in front of them towards the end of the straight. If not, then you're going to be sitting around about 3 or 2 attempts and making up a 1/10 gap on the car in front. So our main slipstream battles will be seen with LMP2 and GT3s today. Not so much of LMDH. LMDH is going to be a more battery deployment kind of game. You're going to play into most of these heavy braking zones here. As we see Sigma and LMDH, I've seen him racing Future going 5 attempts ahead of iRTES Sport as well for LMDH pole position. And iRTES Sport 4 currently sitting on pole by just before or just beyond 0.4 of a second as well, who have actually won the last 2 races in the row here, being winners in Daytona and Fuji as well. As you see, Backpain and Ice Racing being 1.1 seconds off pole position as well. So it's pretty plain sailing for iRTES Sport and 10% Sport as well, out in front there in P1 and 2. But yeah, it's the battle for third for the guys that are a second below them.
Yeah, a little bit more of a spread in the GTDs compared to the at least at the front of the GTDs compared to the LMP2s, albeit probably the LMDHs are probably the most spread out. Good to see so many cars in each of the categories. We've got 8, or potentially even 9, depending on if the Organisation Pro do take to the circuit later on. We've got at least 8 LMDHs, though we've got 9 LMP2s, and then as per the GT3s or the GTDs, with 13 entrants, very well represented out here tonight. Because we have a limited number of laps, the session will advance at the 15 minutes, so the drivers have got to complete their lap time. And so this is it for Backpain and Ice Drain. This is going to be their last lap. They're not going to be able to get around and complete that extra lap before the 15 minutes are up. So for a lot of these GTD drivers who I'm seeing are coming to the end of their laps, this is make or break for them in terms of their qualifying session.
Yeah, indeed. This is the most tense part of the qualifying as well for this Porsche curve. It's so difficult to not get an off track or even a slowdown here as well, which is the big thing around them on. Off tracks aren't really a thing here. It's more just a slowdown of about 2 seconds at the back straight, which never ever clears as he's going over the front of the curbs. Now, you can pick up slowdown here. You can pick up a little bit of damage through these curbs as well. So it's all about being very tentative beyond them and not getting an off track or a slowdown to complete the lap, as we see Mark comes to a line for the organisation. Unfortunately staying in last position, but gains a bit of time on this lap as well by around 2 seconds. But yeah, this track is very unforgiving, especially on lap 1 as well. We'll see potentially a lot of people having slowdowns out of Tessa Rouge, which is the main place that you was to get a slowdown here. And on lap 1 at Le Mans, it is a little bit more sensitive than usual.
Pupai Racing Team just moving up to 5th position there, by the way. That's not the P2 car. Apologies, it is the P2 car in the championship, so that's quite a big result for them. 2nd and 3rd so far this season. So a little bit surprised to see them down as far as they were, but at least they recovered to 5th as the drivers are entering the pit lane now. What I'm hoping is that we're going to see a lot of cars out there, completing this race nice and cleanly. As I think Sim Republic SR3 might just be crossing the line. Apologies. Yeah, I think they are just crossing the line. Let's see if they improve. They do. They move up to 7th place. That's a good effort for them. But I'm hoping that we see as many cars in this race as we possibly can. I think the admins have done as good a job as they possibly can, where we've got a bit of I think an orange zone for the start of this race. So up to Tetra Rouge, which you were mentioning before, all incidents on lap 1 will be reviewed very harshly. And I think that's a very good way of doing it. And often we can say, oh, well, just do it for the whole first lap. But this is a very long lap. And so it makes sense to be patient around that part, which, you know, we've seen issues in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in real life going into the Dunlop chicane, for example. It is just a natural corner, which it involves incidents, but the admins are very much putting the emphasis on the drivers being passive around that part of the circuit on lap 1.
Yeah, indeed. The first 3 corners is very, very tricky, and any car really, but especially LMP2s and LMDHs without the help of ABS as well. So, you know, going through that right-hander at turn 1 onto the heavy braking zone for the Dunlop chicane is incredibly tricky not to lock up, and especially on that one when the tyres are cold and you've got everyone around you, it's very hard to get the braking zone correct. And managing everyone around you as well. So it's good that they've put in that orange zone so drivers are way more focused on just keeping their car intact and focusing on the race ahead. Because again, it's a 4-hour race around Le Mans. You know, you want to keep your car intact in the first lap or the first half of the lap or so, you know, and making sure that you have enough of the car to get to the very end as well.
Yes, exactly. And just before we go through the grid, I will give a shout out as well to SimRace 24/7. SimRace 24/7, an independent sim racing network that prides itself on providing news and more to the sim racing community, bringing you race reports, promotions, community support, features, investigations, analysis, and reviews. And whether you are a pro, a rookie, or anything in between, do check out SimRace 24/7. There is always good sim racing content for anyone, for yourself on that one. So big thanks to them for sponsoring the series, and of course, you know, we've previously provided the late Apex show on the channel, and SimRace 24/7 were an absolutely fantastic source for all the information going on in the sim racing world. So do thoroughly recommend them myself. So the grid then for this round of the championship, third round of the championship from Le Mans, is Pablo Espes for Obsidian Racing Future on pole position, followed by RD Simsport and RD Simsport number 2. Then we have We Too Fast Racing with Jack Chrissy at the wheel in P4, Penguin RC Simulation in 5th. Then it's Sim HQ Motorsports Orange in 6th place, Static Adrenaline in 7th, Pneumatic Motorsports in 8th, and the Organisation Pro hopefully taking to the grid, but they did not set a qualifying time. Then we have Rui Quiros at the top for Tempest Simsports in the LMP2 category, ahead of Sim HQ Motorsports Red. Penguin RC Simulation in 3rd, then it's RD Simsport number 3, 100 Force in 5th, then it's the Organisation Pro-Am, Sim Republic SR3, Longhorn Racing 2, and Blue Shell Racing, rounding out our LMP2 category. And Steve Mello leads the way in the GT3 category for RD Simsport number 4, have been dominant in the championship so far, looking for their 3rd race win on the bounce. Behind them is Tempest Simsport, Back Pain and Eye Strain, Imperial Motorsports, 2Pay Racing Team. Watch out for them, they've had podiums so far this season. And then it is Dog Bear Black, marginally above average, Sim Racing GPR, Team Breakfade, Penguin Simulation, Valhalla Motorsports, and Longhorn Racing. Also the Organisation, that is the number 14 car starting in 13th place in class. Now all the cars will have their different launch zones here, and so they'll sort of launch at different times compared to one another. There should be a bit of a break, and well, already the classes are establishing that right now.
Yeah, indeed. It's good to have them little gaps as well, and the big gaps that break away the categories and classes here as well for this big endurance race. Because if there is that massive collision at lap 1, which hopefully the orange zone is there to hopefully avoid, then obviously the other classes have a time to react to it, and the faster classes in front have time to kind of sort themselves out and get away as well. So yeah, it's good that they have those little start zones here as well, which keep the order of things pretty neat and tidy, hopefully anyways. And yeah, we should be in for a good race here at Le Mans as well. The key for these MDHs at the start is to, you know, be fairly aggressive with their battery early on and get away and, you know, break away from that slipstream as much as possible. Even though it's not that strong, it still is a little bit effective here as well. So break away using that battery and then kind of harvest it moving through the race as well. The key thing is here to fuel save as well. The LMDHs will last around about 10 to 11 laps, and that will be with a fairly moderate fuel saving as well. So I imagine that all these guys are going to try and be fuel saving quite a lot to make that full distance of the stint here today as well.
Yeah, one of the highest fuel consumption circuits we're going to visit all season long. So We'll be pushing the drivers to make 3 stops for this race. Apologies, 4 stops for the prototypes. But yeah, will not be easy for them to do that, as the drivers just approaching the forward chicanes right now. And we wait to see this 3-hour-long event, round 3 of the championship, about to launch underway. Obsidian Racing Future bringing the field to the green flag. They wait and they wait. The green flag in iRacing is out, but still they wait, and now we are launching away. Obsidian Racing Future bringing us to the green flag here at Le Mans, and they're ahead of RD SimSport and RD SimSports 2. No changes so far. Unfortunately, Penguin RC Simulation LMDH have not taken the start so far. We hope to see them onto the grid as the LMP2s are about to launch, and it is Tempest SimSport still about to launch away, leaving it very late before the start-finish line, and the LMP2s have kicked off now as well.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of Penguin RC Simulation, they've actually just gone out the pit lane as well in LMDH, so they've gone as well. As we see LMP2s come through the first corner here, keeping it nice and tidy, again that orange zone, making sure the drivers are staying nice and tidy through this first section as well. Single file, fairly orderly, and yeah, not too many changes of position as we come through the first section as well. As we see LMP2 coming onto the track right in front of the GT3s, who are all spread out and all over the place. That's yeah, LMP2's kind of in the mix there as well, with Steve Miller leading the way still. As we have a look again at the GT3s coming through the first time, again a bit of flashing of the lights there from the GT3 behind the Tempest SimSport car, as the LMP2 just comes in front. That's the organisation program that started from the pit lane. That must have been from a pre-race penalty from them as well. As we see Augusto and Tempest SimSport come through to Thruzen P2. As we see Static Adrenaline, who had a not so great race last time out in Fuji, I'm pretty sure picked up a slowdown coming across the first chicane there as well, the first one of the multi-chance chicane. So shame for them to have the rocky start like that, but they are still on the way, and yeah, not far behind United Motorsports Blue in front.
Yeah, always scary to see a car go that slow on that one, but of all the things it could be a slowdown, it's a pretty good one. They'll be able to recover, and they should be absolutely fine on that front. As we head into the chicane for the first time, and already they are getting aggressive in the GTDs. That's Tempest SimSport ahead of Backpain and Ice Train. No change there, but Backpain and Ice Train came very close to making that move. Behind them, 2Pay Racing Team have got past Imperial Motorsports. Remarkably, that's the only change so far in the GTDs, but is that a slowdown for 2Pay? They're giving up several positions here, and that will send them all the way to the back, because slowdowns are particularly effective on lap 1.
Yeah, indeed, that slowdown is going to eat them up as they drop so many positions there, all the way down to 8th place so far. May even have to sacrifice some more, not so much. No, clears it just in time as well. But yeah, that would be the dream start for Steve Miller out in front, as we see Vincent Marsh get in front of the SimSport car, and now a 2-second gap separates the Backpain and Ice Train Racing Team to RD SimSport 4. So a dream start there for Steve Miller out in front, and he's looking to take, as you said before, back-to-back wins here in the championship for round 3 of Le Mans. So far as we see a move at the back there, Lamborghini of marginally above average sim racers and sim racing PR as well coming through. Gets that move done fairly easy. The Porsche not banning that too much of marginally above average sim racers. Great name as well, by the way. As we see colours come through the Mulsanne corner onto the back straight heading towards Indianapolis as well. And yeah, dream start for Steve Miller so far, and he's looking fairly comfortable for this first few laps here at Le Mans.
Yeah, Mark Nister, driving for marginally above sim racers. I would say his iRating is 2.8k, which I think statistically is like in the top 10% of iRacers. So don't put yourself down there, Mark. You're well above average, I think, if that iRating is anything to go by. Jorge Auguste, trying to respond, going into Indianapolis, which hopefully we will see a side-by-side battle on the last lap. It's so iconic. You can overtake into the Porsche curves as well. These kind of medium-length straights are deceivingly long because they are so short in comparison to the Mulsanne, but you can make moves around this part of the circuit on the last lap. But to see side-by-side action through Indianapolis is one of the best sights in all of sports car racing, as already a lap is in the books. Obsidian Racing Future making a break for it, 1 second ahead of RD SimSport. Now, these two teams were fairly dominant in qualifying, and so far in the race, it looks like they are continuing that dominance.
Yeah, indeed. Pablo Estes being, a sensational LMDH driver. I've driven against him in many different races, even BMW Sim Cups and official races here and there as well. So I know exactly what his race pace and kind kind of management of the car itself is like, and it's really impressive to see iRTES Sport of Archie behind, keeping on the rear end of Obsidian Racing Future as well. Only a second, 1.1 gap now to Obsidian Racing Future in front. So it's really impressive that he's been able to stay on for that long, and there's still a long race to go. So fuel saving is key, managing that battery is key, and especially the tyres as well through this track that, especially for the Porsche curves, can really stretch that tyre wear up to its limit. As we see Nolan as well, Nolan Kinslow for SimXQ Motorsports Orange there in P5 on the back of this top 5 train. It's good to see that the drivers are still fairly close in the MDH category, which is still fairly small, but yeah, good to see we have a nice top 5 battle going on, spread by 4.6 seconds. And as we see the leader, Reed Quiros as well, who I've also raced against in many officials, and yeah, really quick LMP2 driver, and he is showing that right here at Le Mans with a 1.8 second gap, or 1.9. It's ever so growing as well to Penguin RC Simulation and LMP2 behind. And yeah, they've got a pretty comfortable gap to iRTES Sport behind as well, only a 3-second gap separating them. As we see Peter for iRTES Sport 2 taking a slowdown there. It's an interesting place for a slowdown on the exit of the second Mulsanne chicane there. Drops down behind some HQ Motorsports Orange. As we see iRTES Sport 3 having a battle alongside, I believe that is 100 Force as well in P3. Going side by side into the Mulsanne chicane 2. Doesn't really put up a fight too much again. Very, very long race here today as well. Only on lap 2, and the slipstream for these LMP2 cars are super strong. So battling too early on will just lose you a lot of time compared to the guys up front and won't do your race any good for the future.
And SimHQ, I think, picked up a slowdown earlier on in this lap. We might even be able to get a replay of it potentially, because they were up in, I think, maybe as high as 2nd position before that. That's certainly where they started this race, and they dropped down to 5th position due to that slowdown that they picked up, or potentially a mistake that they made. And so that is why Penguin RC are up into 2nd place, and of course 100 Force and RD are also ahead. But at least, as we've got a big crash for Static Adrenaline, who have already picked up a slowdown, and that car is going no further.
No, Static Adrenaline, yeah, not having the best of races here today as well, and didn't have the best races last week either, well, last time out in Fuji as well. As we have an incident under investigation for sim racing PR for driving on track during the drivers' meeting. So, yeah, they'll be sure is looking at that and deciding whether that is a penalty worthy incident or not. But we'll get back to you when we have further updates on that as well. Going back to MDH, or actually going to a replay of what happened here too. Static Adrenaline, as we see them coming through down to Indianapolis. I believe this would be too much rotation at the front end. No, not so much rotation. Oh, the car just didn't actually slow down for them going into Indianapolis. So didn't slow down enough there for going to Indianapolis. The car just went completely straight and then over the bumps and straight into the wall, and that's their day over for them. So yeah, not a great 2 rounds here so far for Static Adrenaline.
No, big disappointment for that team right there. And just trying to see if there is one faster pair, so that they might be able to get back out there, albeit it's best part of a lap down on their rivals. But you don't want to take that if you possibly can. I mean, if you were, I mean, it's sort of quite a big question, because often the events that you're doing are, there are no faster pairs. But what if maybe you get a bit of splitter damage in the first hour of this race? Would you be taking the faster pair, or do you think you would just brave it out and wait to see if there's a bigger incident later on, which requires the faster pair? Like how much will these drivers be looking to take that faster pair for just aerodynamic damage in the early stages?
Well, it just depends on how much damage it's actually causing you. So if you're looking at your delta compared to like your first lap race time or your second lap race time, thinking, okay, I'm losing around a second or 2 seconds per lap with this damage, then it might be best to kind of revert your strategy and pit early on. Not pit soon, but just pit really early on in the strategy call as well. Maybe about lap 7 or 8, especially for MDHs, for example. Because that'll be a good time to get the damage repaired. But if it's losing you about 5 tenths or so, you can kind of live with it throughout the race. Sure, it will take a bit of a knock, but you can kind of live with it. As we see you and Marshall here go side by side with the iRTES Sport number 3 car go into the first Mulsanne chicane. I don't believe iRTES Sport about it too much. Actually, they do. They try and hang around the outside, or the inside actually, going down to the inside now and back into the inside for you and Marshall. Gets to move fairly down. They're still side by side though, but pushes him wide to the left-hand side. Still has a nice run there, going through down to the second Mulsanne chicane here. It seems like iRTES Sport is ahead, covers off that move fairly well as well. Now it's a 3-car train with SimHQ Motorsports Red, iRTES Sport, and Sim Republic SR3 as well. As you see Ewan go back down the inside of the Mulsanne chicane 2, to look for the inside move and be really late on the brakes here. Does iRTES Sport try and hang it out around the outside again? No, just picks it nice and early braking point as we see Ewan Marshall take that position from Jared Bridwell, but goes a little bit wide on the exits, and maybe, a bit of contact there as well on the front end of the RDC Sport car as Ewan tries to go back on the track and rejoins right in front of the RDC Sport car. That's a bit of damage on the front left there for the RDC Sport car as well that I see. Maybe it'll cause him a little bit of damage, and as we said before, if that damage is causing him a lot of seconds per lap, then you might want to be pitting in early on and get that damage repaired as soon as you can.
Yeah, that was all getting very messy, and thought there might be a slowdown as well involved for SimHQ, but they seem to escape that ruling from the 9 judges. And anyone who's maybe not done enough practice around this circuit, certainly I remember 24 hours of Le Mans that I did, where I did not do more than about an hour's practice, and those slowdowns can really hurt you if you are not confident on where the track limits are. And yeah, particularly Tetra Rouge, obviously, but the Mulsanne chicane, the Mulsanne hairpin, apologies, at the end of the Mulsanne straight, really, really painful to cut that corner too much, as well as Marshall a little bit wide there. Remember, this team were up in second position earlier on, qualified up in P2, so you would expect them to be able to pull away. But with the long straights we have, and of course the powerful slipstream that you were mentioning before, Owen, it is often tricky to be able to pull that off until you get into these Porsche curves, where that turbulent air can be a little bit of a deterrent for the cars behind them. Ewan will be trying to make this a bit more comfortable, but already he's 10 seconds off the race lead.
Yeah, indeed. That little scuffle there between the three of them will cost them a lot of time compared to the leaders out in front. So there, so that's going to be set more on getting a P3, maybe P4 out this as well, as 100 Force isn't too far ahead of them, but definitely P2 and P1 out of the order in terms of this first few laps here at Le Mans so far. But a little bit of damage picked up by Ewan Marshall's on the rear left. I believe that is in the car as well. So it's not going to be affecting him too much. It's more going to be affecting the RD Sport 3 car behind on the front left. You see a little bit of damage on the front left light there as well. It won't cause him too much, maybe just a bit of pain and maybe a little bit of unsettling nature of the car at the front end. But yeah, it won't be too much to get it in and get it quickly repaired. But yeah, they keep going. They are quite a few seconds off the lead, but there's still a lot to play for. Still strategy calls to be in this race as well. And maybe an incident could happen to someone else beyond the races, with similar to Static Adrenaline and LMDH as well. Speaking of which, here they are. Out from their fast repair straight into the line of GT3 traffic. And here's a little taster of what we can get later on in this race as well. Through the LMDH traffic and the GT3 traffic as well. He's trying to navigate it fairly easily. Doesn't want to cause these guys too many issues, but this could cause them issues with not really being sure of where he's actually going, because you know, with your LMDH and going past GT3s, you want to be as predictable as possible to help the GT3s out. But yeah, he seems to be kind of taking it nice and easy. Don't want to cause too many issues because he knows that their race is kind of not gone the way that they wanted to do at the minute. So they're trying to pick his way through ever so slowly, very slowly indeed. Just trying to actually go and start by start with the GT3 right now into the braking zone for the final corner here. And yeah, it's a little bit of a taste of what we can see. Obviously not full speed, but you can see the amount of GT3s that there are, and especially for that Porsche curves, it's going to be hard for these guys to find a way around that's comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing a similar event yesterday with these same cars, but Motorsports. And I feel like compared to that, this will be so much easier. Just if any of the drivers, and I think there are maybe a few drivers who took part in that, as Sim Racing PR getting a stern warning for driving the circuit during the drivers' meeting. Some important points covered in that drivers' meeting. So yeah, absolutely fair enough that should be noted by the stewards, but they did not feel like a penalty was warranted for that one. But yeah, certainly at Motorsports, absolutely incredible just how every single move was a risky one. This circuit in comparison much wider, much more straight, and much longer as well. So you come across the traffic much less, and you can see these cars are still very much not colluding with one another. We've got another really 10 minutes or so before we're going to start seeing those LMDHs catch up to the back of the GTDs.
Yeah, indeed. It's, as you said before, with Motorsport yesterday, it was incredibly hectic with the traffic runs here, but this time not so much. Maybe for the Porsche curves, we're going to see a little bit of few incidents between LMDHs and GT3s, but that is a massive if of whether they catch them up at that particular point in the lap as well. But as you can see on the track map on the right-hand side, Pablo Espez and the leading LMDH is coming through Terrace now onto the Mulsanne straight, so not far behind is he compared to the GT3, so may catch them up into the final sector here as well. But yeah, it might be some interesting traffic management skills as well going on here But going back to the GT3s as well, as we see 10% support banding out with back pain live stream racing team, one of the closest battles we have here on track for GT3s as well. And out in front, storming away with the lead so far is Steve Mello with a comfortable just underneath the 7-second gap for him so far. So very, very comfortable for the iRTES before car, making to want to make it 3 wins in a row for them today, which seems more and more possible with the laps to tick by. But yeah, we have Claude Belliver here for Doug Bear Black as well, right behind in 4th place with Sim Racing PR as well, for the closely behind for them. And yeah, it's all very close for now in the GT3s, at least for the 2nd place all the way down to 5th place as well for them. And yeah, very close battle here so far. What I'm noticing is a good pattern here as well. The leading cars in each class are a very, very long way away from the rest of their competition behind. So maybe it's quite a comfortable sail for the P1s here today.
Yeah, it does seem a bit like that. I mean, Pablo Espes, I mean, you were mentioning his credentials earlier on, but he's 9K iRacing as RD Sim Sport 3 have just moved up to 5th place in LMP2. But it's no surprise really that Espes is as clear as he is of the rest of the field. In the LMP2s, we've got Rui Cueros with 7.3K, ahead of Christian with a 4.2. Christian Young Wolf for Penguin RC, 4.2. And then in the GTDs, interestingly, Steve Mello with only, and I don't really use, I don't think only is a warranted word, but in comparison to the other class leaders, it does apply. 5.4K. Vincent Marsh really punching above his weight, 2.2. And then Jorge Auguste, 5.9. So interesting that Jorge has got the highest iRating of any of these GTD drivers at the moment on circuit, but hasn't yet been able to really use that potential because, well, he's partially because he's behind Marsh, but frankly, I don't think Marsh is necessarily a whole lot slower. So I think Backpain and Nice Train just really maximising their performance right now, and Tempest not quite doing the same as Toupee Racing Team, who've already had a setback. Is that another slowdown, I wonder? Oh.
Yeah, it might have been another slowdown coming off the exit of the Porsche curbs as well. On that right hand, if you run over the rumble strips, that's a big, big slowdown going into the final chicanes as well. You see a replay here of what potentially happened to them coming through the right. Yep, that'll be a slowdown. Just didn't get over on the left-hand side white line in time. As we see, then possibly slow down a little bit. Yeah, pulls to the left-hand side, goes on the brakes, clears that slowdown, and gets back behind the Penguin RC simulation car right there. With the Porsche in front, going down into 8th place, losing 3 positions from the start and losing another 2 there from that little slowdown there, which is, yeah, very punishing. As we mentioned before, the slowdowns here are the biggest killers here in Le Mans, rather than the 1x you just get straight on slowdown, which isn't fair. I don't know. I'm not going to be the judge of that. I'm not going to start that conversation just now. But yeah, it is definitely one to watch out for here, especially for Teta Rouge as well. And yeah, you see it pay the price there for Toupee Racing Team that drops down into 8th place.
And thanks to our title sponsor for this series, Penguin RC Simulation, who provide USB steering wheel boxes, their button boxes, and also transmission controls as well, which are compatible with SimuCube, Fanatec, and VRS equipment. So if you want to get some upgrades when it comes to your wheel rim or your sim racing peripherals, do check out penguinrc.com to find out more details. Huge thanks to them for making this series as good as it is, and of course best of luck to all their teams who are entered into this race, who are not doing too bad right now. The LMDH car up in 6th place and the LMP2 car up in P2. The GTD having a bit of a rougher time at the moment, down in 11th position. Brian Song in that car, not getting too much return, but still racing cleanly, and they're still pretty much in the pack for those cars as well, so still very much in play.
Yeah, here we go. And that's the traffic time for most of the LMDHs, of course. Pablo Espes having a 6.6 second lead, but this is just coming down ever so slowly with the traffic here as well. So yeah, he's navigating his way through that pretty cleanly. And a little bit of a scuffle with some G3s there, as we see the Organisation Pro-Am losing it on the final curb there of the final chicane as well. So that will be a possible skip too far to the left-hand side over the curb, which just bumped the rear end too high into the ground. And then, yes, we see a replay here of what happened to the LMP2 of the Organisation Pro-Am. Yeah, I believe, I can't really see it on my screen, but yeah, I should believe it would be a little incident over the curb. Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunate for them as they drop down the order. into last place in LMP2, but going back with the GT3s as well of Jorge Augusto right on the back, or backplane last racing, with Obsidian Racing Future right behind them. Again, Pablo just taking his time here with the traffic. Doesn't want to cause too many issues for himself too early on in the race with a massive gap to play for as well. So just sits tightly behind and on his way by goes as well. iRTES Sport in the background there as well, doing the same thing. As we see Vincent Marsh, as you said before, only 2KR rating here. Today, one of the lowest here we had in GT3 as well. So, well, especially at the front, for sure. But he's doing a great job keeping that 10% sport car behind, who is giving him a lot of pressure for sure. Only 2 tenths behind going to the Porsche curbs now. So he's definitely dealing with that pressure well. And with this traffic coming through as well, he's definitely going to have to manage it even more so. As you can see, the LMDH is coming right behind them as well. iRTES Sport barging through some GT3s behind there, I just saw as well. So getting very feisty with the traffic to fight for him as quick as he can. As Vincent is getting a little bit more pressure from behind, going down 2 tenths still and just coming ever so close to that slipstream. As we see the iRTES Sport car coming closely behind, slowly and slowly more closer. Archie Coveney as well. Now 10 seconds behind the Obsidian Racing Future car. So obviously Pablo not having any traffic for the Porsche curbs. Archie having traffic really caused Archie a lot of issues there, losing 4 seconds to Obsidian Racing Future. So Pablo is even more comfortable than he already was. As we see the second of the iRTES Sport LMDH cars coming through now as well, being pressured behind of We Too Fast Racing, followed closely by CMHQ Motorsports Orange as well, going to Dunlop chicane. So the battle for third, or the battle for the podium place, is very much alive in these early stages, and it's looking very close so far for this traffic race.
Yeah, traffic is going to be so fundamental, as we always say it, but it's such a contrast in where you can find it around this circuit. I mean, some parts you just lose absolutely nothing, and then some parts you, as you were saying before, you can lose up to 4 seconds, and so really is a bit of luck when it comes to it, and you haven't really got a whole lot of control either, because like I said, it is so contrasting between the two of them. Of course, in the future, this might be potentially the last event in this series when it comes to only having one LMDH out there, because I think there are rumours, dare I say it, may have been confirmed, that we have the Cadillac LMDH coming to the sim in the near future. So this will be all of a sudden a multi-car series potentially.
Yeah, indeed. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, being an LMDH driver myself, I'm very much looking forward to the Cadillac coming soon. Well, I hope it's coming soon anyway, because I really just want to get my hands to it, because it's my favourite LMDH in real life as well, or the GTP car in real life. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to how it compares to the BMW and that kind of talk of BOP and the best performing car does LMDH into prototypes as well, which never really had. And it's good to see the prototypes are getting more of a bigger name in iRacing when it's been very GT3 dominated. And it's good to see the LMDHs and prototype world getting a bit of love as well, with the new LMDHs coming into iRacing slowly but surely. And yeah, I'm looking forward to how it drives. I love the BMW so far, but the Cadillac sound, I mean, how can you not love it? The big guzzly V8 on the rear end of that car is a joy to the ears. As we see, We Too Fast Racing having a little bit of travel into the gravel on the left-hand side of the Mulsanne chicane as well, as we see a side-by-side with Jack Chrissy here for We Too Fast Racing and CMHQ Motorsports Orange taking through on the inside, going down into Indianapolis. They have the iRTES Sport car with Steve Miller right in front. That's going to compromise this bout ever so slightly. Are they going to go 3-1 to Indianapolis? I think they are. No, just tucks in behind. It does Jack Chrissy for We Too Fast Racing, and CMHQ Motorsports Orange takes that 4th place after a mistake from Jack there after the Mulsanne corner going a bit too deep and wandering into the gravel.
Good driving from Jack Chrissy right there. I was waiting for him to take the hard shoulder there, or just try to go through the middle, make it too wide, or just go straight through the GCD. None of that. He just lifted out of it and lives to fight another day with 2 hours and 46 minutes to go. So really good to see Jack having the common sense to back out of that one. And yeah, we'll see if he can come back later on that front. Of course, do let us know in the chat if you're looking forward to the Cadillac, and of course also the LMP3s as well, which I think has been, I think that was confirmed a while ago to be coming for next season. I've seen a couple of other series announce that they'll be taking the LMP3. And of course, when it comes to replicating IMSA events, that car will be fairly fundamental for, you know, similar series like this. And so should be quite prominent. Do you think you're gonna give it a go, Owen, or you gonna stick with the more powerful Case type cars?
I think definitely they have to give it a shot. I mean, you can't not. LMP3s are a bit of a meme car in the real world as well, obviously being known as the dentist mobile in some areas as well. But yeah, it'll be nice to get a hands-on version of the car and being well, cool to see where it's implemented in iRacing as well. Implemented in hopefully a kind of LMP3 and GT4 kind of class, and maybe some of these leagues as well having an array of different cars with LMDH, LMP2, LMP3, GT3, and maybe even sneaking some GT4s in there as well to really spice things up, which I think will be a really cool league idea to do. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to try it, and yeah, hopefully everyone else is as well.
Yeah, once again, do let us know if you are interested in taking part in that car in the near future. I think it will be very popular, albeit it will be tricky as the Dallara PT17 is such a good car that drawing participation away from that will be very tricky to do. It will have to be a very well-modeled car from iRacing to do so. As We2Fast Racing, after losing that position just a few moments ago, that looked like a very nice slipstream that they were able to pick up, a rarity that you really don't see in the LMDHs a whole lot. When we were broadcasting another series on the channel over the past few months, the slipstream just wasn't at all in effect, and it was so tricky to overtake, particularly around circuits like Sebring. Obviously this place is much more possible, but it is really tricky to know until you properly see it in effect just how weak the toe effect is in this car. But that seemed very nice for Jag. Do you think that was due to this high speed that they were going, that the setup, or was it a bit of battery deployment that you saw there on?
Well, it seemed to me like a little bit more of a battery deployment scenario for Jack Chris as well. Maybe not a full-on switch to attack mode because the speed wasn't too different, but definitely, Jack definitely saved up a lot more in the first few sectors there because at the very end of the straight, he had just enough to get past him, which, slowly came more and more to the car as well. So I believe that was just Jack saving a bit more battery, using that brake to his advantage to just save a bit more behind the Simulation Motorsports orange car, then deployed it all the way down the straight, and yeah, was able to get that move done fairly securely as well, using a little bit of the slipstream advantage there as well. So really good move there by Jack Chrissy to build that momentum up with the battery behind him. And yeah, as you can see here, he's already got around about a second gain on Simulation Motorsports orange as well. So yeah, great driving from Jack so far with that previous mistake made at Mustang Corner.
Yeah, really good stuff. And yeah, as you say, already a gap being made. And of course, they're not a long way away from pit stops. Obsidian Racing just starting their 9th lap of this race. And so, yeah, maybe 11 laps into this race, we might be seeing some pit stops. Maybe a little bit further, to be fair, for the LMDHs compared to the LMP2s. But not a whole lot longer. And of course, for the GT3s, is a 2-stop possible, you think, tonight? Or are they going to be too limited on fuel to make the hour mark?
Well, for this league, it's a 97% fuel limit, so I should imagine that's taken them just to the hour of each track. So I should imagine that it should be a fairly comfortable 2-stop, especially for someone like Steve Miller, who has tons of experience in this BMW and GT3s in general. So we'll be able to use that full saving to his advantage, and yeah, really stretch that fuel out to a 2-stop strategy there, and maybe even a small splash and dash at the end for those that aren't saving quite as much as him. But yeah, I can imagine this will be a fairly comfortable 2-stop for RD Sinsport in front, who have pretty much no real battles at all behind. Obviously, the main battle going on from second all the way down the order as well, as we see Vincent Marsh still being under pressure from Tempest Simsport. Only around about 0.3 of a second now separates them two, and that's been stayed the same pretty much since the word go here at Le Mans. So really great stuff to see Vincent Marsh still keeping that Tempest Simsport car behind. But Tempest may have a little bit more pace in the car and maybe just be saving behind. As we see Dubai Racing Team actually get by both of the GT3s in front of him, who previously, around these last few chicanes, had a slowdown as well that put him behind them 2 cars. So great to see he's in front of them already, pulling away for as well. So yeah, great racing by Jose Carrera as well, and interesting to see how he got their moves done actually.
Yeah, 2 podiums already for Toupé, so still plenty of catching up to do for them. They've had a very tricky start to this race, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to these longer races, if you can just keep the car clean, then losing 2 seconds here, 3 seconds there doesn't usually make a difference. Obviously, it can come down to the wire on occasion, but on the most part there is plenty of time to recover, and so seeing that there's no damage on that car, still potential for a very strong result. And of course, yeah, those moves that they've made recently will be helping them out there. And Imperial Motorsports, they're still getting a nice draft, and that should just about save them from the attack of marginally above average sim racers from behind, taking that coveted 911 car number for this series. And no moves into the first Mulsanne chicane. You can see on the track map, still these guys fairly free, but it's not going to be a whole lot longer till the LMP2s come across. It might be close, in fact, whether the LMP2s end up making their pit stops before reaching these GT3 cars. Obviously, we've got a few stragglers at the back, but on the most part, the field are pretty much free from those prototypes for now.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, as you said as well, as you see a little bit of a moment from the rear end there of the 10% Sport LMP2 car, but yeah, as you were saying, it probably would be beneficial for especially someone like 100 Force to pit very early on in this race if it's possible to do that as well, to stretch the field towards the end, because avoiding this traffic, especially in the last sector, can pay very dividend to you a lap time as well. And if you're going to pit to avoid that, you may as well take that chance and try and avoid the traffic as much as you can to try and get as much clean air running as physically possible, which is the main aim for most of these strategies in endurance racing as well. But yeah, good to see those in the chat today supporting the teams. We have Martin Shirley there saying, let's go RDC Sport. Indeed, RDC Sport having a very successful day in GT3 and also in LMDH being P2 and 3 as well. And we have Kalioff as well saying, let's go Zach and Vincent. I believe Vincent obviously being the back pain and ice showing racing team, who were being very, very pressured behind from 10% Sport. It seems a bit of bunch drafting there going on between the GT3s, which is quite risky with this new damage model so far. But yeah, it seems like 10% Sport is just sitting there saving fuel behind that back pain ice showing racing team. No pressure really behind from Dog Bear Black. So yeah, Tempest just saving that fuel and possibly getting in front after the pit stops have occurred as well. But yeah, great to see the support in chat and keep it coming throughout this 3-hour-long race.
Yeah, we'd love to see the fan clubs out in force. So yeah, if you are a fan of any of the drivers or the teams, do put a comment in the chat, and well, we're a little bit more likely to show them on the stream if you do. ID Sim Sport 3 just saw them go off the circuit for a bit. They have lost a bit of time, and there they are. They've gone off at Mulsanne. Yes, but they seem to not have a whole lot of damage on that car. As Blue Shell actually will move past into P6. Now, are these guys going to go 3 wide? Not quite, but not giving up on the overtake will RD number 3. And they have had a bit of a tricky start to this race. Jared Birdwell at the wheel of that car, and I'm not sure if that was an even intended move there, and I think he may have just broken a bit later than the driver ahead and had to put his car somewhere in order to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Blue Shell Racing doesn't have the exact pace as Jared behind it. Didn't expect that early breaking point as well, and it seemed like he kind of reacted to that as well. To see a replay here of what happened there to Jared to cause him to slip behind that Blue Shell Racing car as well. So he's coming through into the Mulsanne corner, probably locks up too much. Yeah, a bit too deep and wandering into the gravel, which is so difficult to say. Luckily, no damage on that car as well, as we see an instant under investigation for the RDC Sport 3 and the SimHQ red car as well. So interesting to see that being noted by the stewards, and we'll see what that comes to as well at the end of that investigation. As we see SimHQ Motorsports red with Ewan Marshall just following behind that 100 Force racing car in front of them as well. So very close battle here for LMP2 for the top step, or well, the last step in the podium, shall I say.
Yes, yeah, last step of the podium at the moment. Yeah, Penguin RC doing really well at the moment, Penguin RC simulation. Christian Youngwall. But obviously, you know, we have got a driver swap coming in later on. We might even have 2 driver swaps. 2 or 3 drivers allowed to take part for each car in this series. And so the order that we're seeing at the moment won't necessarily continue. And I do recall when I was broadcasting one of the teams at Daytona, can't exactly recall which car it was, but there was quite a difference between the 2 drivers. One maybe a 3K drive and one a 1K drive, and obviously that made a big difference to their pace. And so the order that we're seeing at the moment won't necessarily continue, albeit of course for the fact that we've had a couple of rounds in the books. we do know a few of the teams have got very good strength in depth, as We Too Fast Racing have come into the pits. That's at the end of lap 10 of this race. I know it says lap 11 at the top there, but that's just because the leaders have already started lap 11. Yeah, this is pretty much exactly what you said right from the start on lap 10 or 11, but most of the drivers have been able to clinch it over that extra lap.
Yeah, indeed. It's a fairly moderate fuel save to reach it past that this lap 10 mark as well. As you see, some of the drivers not saving enough fuel. It's roughly about 4.8 litres per lap that you need to use to make it that full distance and get another lap in as well. But most of these drivers probably didn't save as much as well, and that's come in for that early pit stop. As we see, yeah, We Too Fast Racing coming as well as Sim HQ Motorsports Orange Organisation Pro still out there, fighting in full force. Keenan Massey there as well. Maybe he will be coming in this lap to have his pit stop fairly early on as well. But yeah, no pit stop for the leading 4 cars currently. They're saving their fuel all nice and tidily as we see Keenan coming in for his pit stop as well. First pit stop of the race so far, 35 minutes in, so we should see quite a lot of pit stops this day. Probably around 5 or 6 for most of these LMDH cars, depending on the, the distance that they can run that fuel. And as we see Jack Chrissy for We Too Fast Racing coming out of the box into a nice set of clean air there as well. As we see the leaders on the right-hand side of the track map there, pretty much getting into LMP2 traffic. Not too much, but just a small bit there, which could affect them as we see Pablo Espes coming on to the back of that Mercedes AMG car there. Won't cause too many issues for him. Only just a straight here for him to pass, which is fairly easy in these MDHs with the speed difference that these cars have. But yeah, obviously 17-second gap for the Racing Fusion car won't be too much of an issue with strategy-wise, and I'm sure they can afford to take a few risks here and there.
Yeah, they're in a very comfortable position at the moment. I think you're right in terms of it being 5 or 6 stints for the drivers out there. I think it will be quite marginal, where I think the drivers will have to pull off some 11-lap stints. I think if you're doing 11 laps consistently, then it'll be a fairly easy 4-stopper. But if you're dipping into the 10s, then you will struggle to make it, as we see now most of the LMP2s, and the LMP2s are usually a little bit shorter on fuel than the LMDHs. Not much of a difference today. It seems like it's maybe just the 1 lap for most of the drivers, but I think, yeah, all the LMP2s are going to have to be making their way down the pit lane, and so will probably be, yeah, once again, a marginal 4-stop for these drivers as Birdwell misses the apex slightly on the pit entry. Are there any tougher pit entries than this in the world of sim racing, you think, Owen?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, they all have their own characteristics, especially like Road America, for example. You know, uphill crest. It's very hard to find a good braking turn there without locking up the fronts and hitting that pit lane too fast as well. But this is definitely a tough one. You kind of want to take like a racing line throughout them, 2 apexes as you come into the corner as well. So, yeah, it's very tricky, but it can be very quick depending on how quick you take it as well. As most of these guys come into the pits for a fresh set of boots. And yeah, fairly standard pit stop for these guys here today with 10% sport coming out far beyond the rest of them so far. But yeah, definitely a tricky pit stop to come into in the pit box as well. Obviously, the speed is very slow, but it can be very disorientating sometimes coming into that pit box and hitting your marks without overshooting it or possibly going too slow as well. As you see, Pablo Espes and Archie as well, the 2 RD Sim Sport LMDHs come into the box now as well. So this is going to be interesting actually for these LMDHs because they're going to come out just behind the LMP2s as well. So yeah, I wonder how much of an effect this will have on most of these as well. Of course, We Too Fast Racing has so much clean air in front of them that they won't have to deal with this as much as RD SimSport and the rest of the people that they were battling with as well. So, yeah, let's see if the pitting early was actually the better option for Jack Ritchie there.
So there goes Espes. He can pretty much do what he wants with the strategy because of that very comfortably. I think 18 seconds he got it up to before his pit stops. But yeah, as you were saying, there could well be a little bit of a difference when it comes to the traffic for the drivers behind. RD SimSport now coming out. Archie Coveney still at the wheel of that car. Just a 1/10 of a second difference when it came to the fuel that they put in. RD SimSport 2 and Penguin RC Simulation also exiting out of the pit lane. Of course, the GTDs, as Owen mentioned earlier on, limited to 97% fuel for this race, and so yeah, we'll be seeing them into the pits in about 20 minutes time or so, as Jack Chrissy for We Too Fast Racing in that 4th position. So I think that's a maintenance, isn't it, of that position. But but I mean, that's a lot easier said than done because he was very close behind, or he was very close to Flynn Lazier before the pit stops occurred, and then not far behind RD Simsport 2 at all now, only 1.5 seconds separating P3 and P4.
Yeah, as you said, it's a really good pit stop times here for the guys so far, and yeah, great to see that the battle is still fairly close. Again, we have the traffic coming out of LMP2s as well, and LMP2 and LMDH traffic is hard to navigate. You know, the brakes on LMDH aren't as strong as the LMP2 as well, or at least it's so much easier to lock up in LMDH than it is in LMP2 as well here. So for most of the as we see Hunter Force off in the Mulsanne corner as well, that's him spinning around the Mulsanne corner, so maybe he locks it up too much going down into that corner there as we see him traveling through the Mulsanne straight and diving into the Mulsanne corner. Probably too hot on the brakes. It seems that way as well. Just loops it around. Yeah, okay, luckily no damage to that car as well, but yeah, loops it under his own force. And yeah, gives that position to Sim HQ Motorsports Red as well. So yeah, shame for Justin there. I'm sure he's going to be not too happy with himself with that little mistake there that he's made and has allowed Ewan Marshall to slip into P3 as he's navigating the traffic right in front of him.
I think it's something that we take for granted when it comes to sim racing, where we see a spin like that and we think, oh, it's not going to matter too much. But if that was real life, you'd be running the risk of getting beached in the gravel there. And it is surprising that there's not really been much appetite necessarily for, you know, beaching a car in the gravel. I mean, is that something that you'd like to see, Owen? Because I feel like that would really raise the stakes when it comes to these events. Obviously, you can always tow back to the pits, but I mean, unless you hit a wall in iRacing, you're fine pretty much as we see a move into the Porsche curves. Nice work there from RD Simsport. Remember, on the comeback after a bit of a setback that they seemingly had some contact with, I believe it was 100 Force a few laps ago, that incident being investigated, and then went straight on at Mulsanne corner, but Jared Birdwell Bridwell, apologies, up to 6th place now. But yeah, would you like to see some beaching there? Because I think it would really change these endurance events where we see a lot more setbacks for drivers just due to small spins like that.
Yeah, I'm very sure for commentators and spectators, it would be great to see the beaching happen, you know, with these mistakes really being costly for most of these drivers out there. But as a driver myself, definitely not. I don't want my mistake in the gravel to be me staying in there, and that would be my race over. But yeah, definitely as a commentator and a spectator, that would be a joy to see them implement that. Of course, making it more real as well, which is the whole point of sim racing, to make it as realistic as possible, which they're already doing a fairly decent job at right now. But yeah, that'll be even better. The icing on the cake for the spectating value of the sims here. But as a driver, definitely not.
Backvane with a really good logo on the door. Very much a posture that I'm sure we have all pulled in the past, and yes, yeah, all the sim racing logos, that is a very good one. There you can see it's on the side of the car. Tempest, it looks to me a little bit like they are just saving fuel right now and just trying to make that fuel number. I think we were talking about the strategy earlier on, and yeah, Jorge wanting to get beyond that hour mark, and with the fuel limitations, that will be very, very tricky to do for these drivers, and no real appetite basically to take that position, as we see SimHQ Red have got a drive-through penalty for an unsafe rejoin, causing an avoidable contact and loss of position to another driver. So I think that was in relation to an incident they had with RD Simsport 3, and so yeah, SimHQ, after working so hard to get back up into P3, of course they started in second, they dropped as well as 6th, I believe, on lap 2. That drive-through, is that what, 25 seconds they'll lose?
Yeah, roughly about that. Drive-through here is well, the pit lane being very short, so yeah, it's not too much of an issue for them, as we see a replay here of what happened to them. It's not showing the white screen very well here, but yeah, this is the incident between the RD Sport car and well, very early on that they saw that as well. So yeah, they're giving the damage to the RD Sport car on the front right or front left of the car, sorry, as well. So picked up a driver penalty for that. Is it too strict? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't look like it caused them too much damage. Maybe if it's appealed, then RD Sport believe that their car has been really hindered because of that damage as well. But yeah, driver penalty for Ewan Marshall. They're going to be very not happy about that one. And they'd lose probably about 20-25 seconds, as you said, through this pit lane as well. But yeah, shame for them.
Yes. Interesting or tight decision there, but of course, I mean, all 4 wheels off the circuit, and the stewards deciding that at that point it's the responsibility of the driver to rejoin the circuit sensibly. But then, of course, you bring into question where is the track limits? You know, not necessarily a penalty by going out that wide. And so, where are the off-tracks? But I think the stewards already clarifying it's at the white line. As Toupé Racing Team, interestingly, into the pit, so they're definitely not going to a 2-stop. They've committed to a 3-stop early. I didn't see any damage on that car though, and so I don't think it's damage that they've had to come into the pits early on, as SimHQ Red already serving their drive through penalty right now.
Yeah, I believe that would just be a case of just, trying to avoid the traffic as much as they possibly can, which is good because you can see on the track map it's getting very messy on that right-hand side as well. So avoiding it is probably the best idea they could do, as you see LMP2 coming through now. And then they have to follow through more LMP2s coming through too. So, yeah, I can imagine that's a kind of strategical kind of advantage there from them trying to get in cleaner as much as they can. As we see a side-by-side between Easy Fast Racing and Penguin RC Simulation in the final corner. Jack very sensibly backs out of it and doesn't go too wide into a section where pretty much too wide. There's not really a thing here, as you can see as well. And on board with Jack as we go here as well for a little bit of a first lap here for the battle in third class. You can see very, very close to Team Northern, making their way through traffic as well. Through the right-hander into turn 1, very early on the brakes, trying to stack them too hard, as well as lock up as possible here. Fling it over to the left and back over to the right-hand side for the first Dunlop chicane. Going all the way out to the left-hand side, not going too much to get a slowdown here as well. And Le Mans being very punishable with its slowdowns as well. Now into the cambered left-hander. Very early on Tosses to carry all the momentum through on the right-hander for Tete Rouge. As you can see, a little bit of traffic there for most of these guys to manage. RDC Sport gets in front of them. The very successful traffic manoeuvre there for Peter in front. Loses them a little bit of time though on the exit compared to Lazier and Chrissy as well, who are now on the charge right behind Peter to try and catch on the back of him. But I'm sure Jack would try and make his move warranted on the back of Flynn there as well. As we see, that gap's getting slower, well, closer and closer. Thinks better of it actually. Lifts a little bit, and we see the Penguin RC Simulation car just backing out a little bit onto the right hand side to say no, you are not getting through. And Jack realizing that and saving a bit of fuel with the exit. A little bit hindered by Jack there, going too deep onto the entry of the Morsan corner. But yeah, that battle is still livening up with only a second separating these 3 cars.
Yep, it's a little bit tricky to anticipate who's the fastest car out of this chain, because I was sort of assuming that Jack seemed to be the fastest, but obviously Flynn making that move on the previous lap very much seems that now he's got the momentum. So yeah, bit tricky to call this one, as that will be pushing the track limits, I would have thought, but I think Jack's got away with out a slowdown, but very willing to take as much curve as he possibly could there. Peter Sikdar still at the front of this train. They are now 15 seconds behind RD Sim Sports. The number 1 car, certainly no battle between the 2 of them. So I think there was in the early stages last time out at Fuji. And if the championship ended, or if the race ended as it did now, of course, it would be Obsidian Future taking a 4-point advantage in the championship with 3 rounds to go. 3 points between first place and second place when it comes to the point system in each of the classes in this series, as RD Sim Sport number 4 already in. So yeah, very much sort of going the way that we sort of thought when it comes to a 3-stop strategy being the common one, and RD easily making that number there and taking tyres as well. They are limited to 3 sets of tyres, so one of these stints, and they are going to have to keep the same set of tyres on the car for 2 stints. But of course, probably the best way to do that is have your shortest stint maybe at the end of the race. Just keep the tyres on, and then yeah, you don't need that. That's probably the best way, and the freshest tyres across the entire race if you do that.
Yeah, indeed, as you mentioned, yeah, just then it's always best to have your, if you do have to get the tyres on, it's always best to save it for the very end of that stint as well. And of course, we see, I believe, Backpain Live Stream Racing Team and Semper Simsport not pitting as well, so saving enough fuel to keep going for them too. So that's yeah, great for them, as we see some cars not going up on the jacks actually, so they're taking no tyres so far, as we can see so far on the replay here, or the live feed here, as we can see. not taking any tires for them so far, so maybe they're doing the opposite of that strategy and not taking tires to the early stint and pushing it right towards the very end to have some fresh set of boots for a final bash on the final stint.
Interesting call there. The in-sim time is 9 o'clock in the morning, so I wonder if they're thinking, let's go for let's push the tires now when the track is cooler, and then when it warms up later on, we want the fresher tires. Do you think that could be the thinking there, Ryan?
That could be a very good idea, yeah. Now you bring that up. The track is obviously, as we can see, around 69 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly around 21 degrees in centigrade as well. So it's still fairly warm, but it's only going to get warmer with that time rising up as well. We still have just over 2 hours to go here as well. So it's a good idea to save them now and then push them at the end when the track's going to ramp up. So that's a good call there from that team. As we see iRTES Sport 2 going very, very deep in the first Mulsanne chicane there. And we have Penguin RC Simulation right on the rear end of Peter Isikdar there as well, pulling out to the left-hand side on the Mulsanne straight, heading into the Mulsanne chicane 2 there. As Flynn is using all his energy and all the battery that he can to try and get past before the corner actually happens. Just gets past now, right in front of the nose of Peter. Goes deep on the brakes. Doesn't seem like iRTES Sport going to fight it. Doesn't, and just sticks behind Flynn there and tries to save a bit of fuel, save a bit of battery to attack him further down in the lap. But yeah, good move there by Penguin to seize that opportunity that Peter made possible from going too deep at the Mulsanne chicane.
Yeah, and yeah, those seemingly small mistakes cost you so much on that next straightaway for the drivers. So yeah, it can be very costly. I think he's gone in a little bit deep, but so far at least has got away with it. Won't be a whole lot of overspeed for RD Sim Sports. You might have a second attempt at this overtake if they so choose to, and they will pull alongside, but then dip out of it. And once again, these three, they have not been this close for the entire race, really. And Jack Chrissy with the best view of it of anyone. Few LMP2s lining up ahead of them as well. Just a couple, in fact 3, apologies. I think they got to overtake, but they might catch them in the Porsche cars as well, which will not be what Penguin RC wants to see.
No, indeed. This is a great onboard to see, though, from the perspective of the LMP2s coming into play here as well. Going into the Porsche curves in an LMDH, a very, very insanely fast section for this car. Barely any braking used here at all as well, as we start off our journey into the Porsche curves, flicking it to the right-hand side, super quick, straight away on throttle, letting the car use all its high-speed grips it can. So you can see the Penguin RC Simulation car getting caught out there by LMP2, having to slow down a little bit more, tries to go around the outside of the LMP2 and does so with the high-speed grip of this car as well. It's a great move by him to manage that traffic very well and storm away from this little pack here, building that gap all the way to 1 second now as well. So as we see the iRTES Sport car and the weekly fast racing car picking their way through LMDH traffic, LMP2 traffic, sorry, into the final chicanes. There we go as well. But yeah, great from Penguin RC Simulation to seize that opportunity and go around the outside of one of the final corners in the Porsche curves, which is insanely quick for this LMDH, not compared to the LMP2, which needs to have a little bit of brake on here and there. But yeah, great move from the Penguin RC Simulation to seize that moment and take it around the outside.
Yeah, that's really smart heads-up driving from them. It certainly yielded a bit of a margin for them as it stands. We are nearly at the hour mark, and pretty much all the GT3s now have made a pit stop in this. Did we too fast go into a wall there? They seem to be. I
think I just saw it, yeah. From bouncing off from the iRTES Sport LMP2 car, I think went into the grass. I don't think that's damage on them at all. Yeah, a little bit of flash there from the iRTES Sport car behind. Yeah, there might have been a little bit of altercation as we see a replay of what happened here between the two of them. With Jack Chrissy at the wheel, of course. The iRTES Sport car comes through in LMP2, letting their teammate in LMDH come by. LMP2 on the inside, trying to hang around on the left-hand side. Okay, just drifts on into the left-hand side grass there. Okay, yeah, but no crash there between the two of them at all. A little bit of a flash there from iRTES Sport, but yeah, might have been a little bit of a chip in the grass for them there as well. But keeps the car intact. Doesn't lose too much time compared to the iRTES Sport and the Penguin RC Simulation cars ahead of them. But yeah, a little bit of a heart in the mouth moment for Jack there.
Where do you think the fault kind of lay there? Because it seemed like Jack's intentions were quite clear that he was going to go around the outside at the S. But if you're the LMP2, I guess you can just run your normal racing line. I mean, who would you say should feel more aggrieved on that occasion?
Oh, not at all. Not at all for the LMP2 at all. The LMP2 was staying towards his line. Jack was just trying to go around the outside, as you can see on the onboard. LMP2 sticks in its line. MDH tries to go around the outside and just gets caught out by the way the track flows and kind of tightens up on the exit there as well. So, bit of a mistake there from Jack. None at all when the RDC spot and LMP2 car there. And keeps going.
And the attrition rate so far has been very surprising. We have got no retirements in this race. We started off with 9 LMDHs, 9 LMP2s, and 13 GTDs. And they're still going, all of them. And none of them are particularly far behind. I mean, in the GTDs, everyone, apologies, the GT3s, but I will get that wrong a few more times today. But the GT3s all within a lap of one another. The LMDHs are a little bit more spread out. We've got the top 7 all on the same lap, and then we've got Static Adrenaline and the organisation 1 lap down. And in the LMP2s, I think everyone is on the lead lap as well, albeit Evagoras Papas Savas might drop a lap down, as that is a very odd line there for Jake Rager in the LMDH car, but keeping it on the circuit still. But yeah, just incredible just how consistent the drivers are around here. And, you know, it's a sort of a circuit, I think, on where the walls are quite close, and so you can, you know, bin it into the wall. I mean, if you have a slide at Indianapolis, for example, you know, that's probably game over. And of course, we should remember there is a faster pair in this series as well, which has kept a couple of teams in play. But I think also just you sort of just get into quite a passive mode of thinking, I feel like, around this circuit, where it's not a circuit where it's easy to make up time, at least in my experience, because you can ace a couple of corners, but then you got a really long straight again. And it can take hours to make up half a minute, even if you're, you know, solidly faster than the driver ahead. It is a tricky circuit to make up time here because just so much of it is straight. So I feel like drivers sort of just get into a bit of a more of a passive routine. At least that's my experience. I don't know if, you know, you've got anything kind of similar in your past around the circuit.
Yeah, for sure, I can relate to that, definitely. Obviously, most of this track just being straights, it's so difficult, even if you say, like, you know, you're a bit quicker through the Porsche curves, for example. It's only a tiny section compared to this massive track here at Le Mans as well. So yeah, it's really difficult to try and manage the time here, but again, if you have that pace, you've got to extract it lap after lap after lap. So someone like Pablo Espas at the very front, he would be able to extract that pace constantly at the very beginning and really build away from RDC Sport at the front there as well. And similar to all these people that are leading at the front as well, they're just constantly building that pace and building that gap up to a point where they can just, you know, passively lap insanely fast as well. As we see, Sim Republic SR3 being very slow on the exit of the Mulsanne chicane there. Wonder what happened to them. It must have been too deep on the entry there for them, with a very, very slow exit there, as we see Blue Shell Racing on the back of them as well. Nick Kuhn as well. See him on the rear end, probably darting towards the left-hand side. Does so with a massive amount of overspeed. Probably gets it done before the corner. A little bit of overlap there as well between the Blue Shell Racing and Sim Republic SR3. Doesn't make it too difficult for him. And they're side by side going in with a little bit of a lock-up there as well. They're still side by side going in with a little bit of overlap. And number 19 car, the Blue Shell Racing, has to take a little bit of avoiding action there and loses out to Sim Racing Republic there of the 116 car as well. So a little bit of altercation between the two of them, as we see a replay of what happened here to Nathan himself. So a big gap to the cars behind him. Very interesting there. Has a little bit of a weird line going into the corner. A little bit of a half spin as well on the curb. So yeah, the very interesting entry there for him. And then kind of lost it on the curb itself, with the tyres, yeah, giving away on him and having to slam on the brakes as well.
Yeah, surprising to see that mistake, because it wasn't an especially strange usage of the curb. He didn't really completely go over it or anything. So, and of course, fairly fresh tyres as well. These LMP2 cars will be changing tyres at every pit stop, no limitation when it comes to their tyre sets. And so, it's surprising to see a mistake like that at this part of the race. Thanks to one of the sponsors for this series, SimRace 24/7, a leading sim racing news site when it comes to all things sim racing, whether that's be race reports, promotions, community support, features, investigations, analysis, and reviews. and yeah, an independent sim racing network that prides itself on providing news and more to the sim racing community. So do certainly check out Sim Race 24/7 if you want to find out everything that's going on in the world of sim racing. Of course, you know, we were talking earlier on about updates to iRacing when it comes to the new season, and yeah, the moment that stuff like that gets announced for iRacing or any of your favorite simulators, Sim Race 24/7 will be all over it and be bringing you that news. So big thanks to them for supporting this series. As Jorge Auguste, of course, only just ahead of Imperial Motorsports. Just trying to recall if these guys have been nose to tail for the entire race. I'm not entirely sure. No, so yeah, I'm just trying to figure this one out because, of course, we had a bit of a change when it came to the GT3s in terms of how long the pit stops were, where we saw Augusto for Tempest take 40 seconds stationary, and Back Pain and Ice Train, who they were with earlier on, only 31 seconds. So that was a 9-second loss that Tempest had. I believe that was because Tempest, I guess, just took more fuel than their rivals. They're on a very easy 3-stop. These guys are not going to be pushing the 2-stop like we sometimes see. It's a very easy 3-stop, and so at the moment, Back Pain and Ice Train deciding to take their short stop now, and that's why Tempest have lost out, and that's why they're battling Imperial Motorsports, who themselves took a very short amount of fuel, only 24 seconds, which you can see is 16 seconds shorter than Tempest. So that's why these two cars are so close to one another as it stands.
Yeah, of course, these guys would have done their strategy working out before the race as well, so they know exactly what to fuel, exactly what time as well. And it seems, yeah, as you said, Back Pain, Ice Train Racing Team, and Imperial Motorsports as well, having that little bit of a shorter fuel stop as well, probably taking that splash and dash pretty much right now and getting the benefit of the cooler track time as well. So yeah, interesting to see different strategy calls out there today. Maybe it's worked out for them in the long run, but obviously we'll have to find out later on in the race. But so far, Jorge Augusto for Tempest Sport keeping a fairly well, safe-ish P3 so far, being kind of challenged by Imperial Motorsports. They're not looking too feisty behind, you know, just casually fuel saving and really pushing that fuel margin to the very end that they can possibly get to, as we see. Well, we saw with iRTES Sport and quite a lot of these teams out here today. They they pitted early on compared to a few of them, and I think only 2 cars, I think Tempest and Back Pain, went 1 lap extra as well. So yeah, they're going to try and run as long as they can, which seems to be the kind of strategy call here today for the GT3s. But yeah, interesting to see different strategy calls being made here and there today.
And Augusto having a bit of a poor lap that time round. He just did a 4-minute dead compared to the car ahead of him, Back Pain and Ice Train, doing a 3:55. And of course, he might have a little bit more fuel in that car, but the fuel levels certainly did make a 5-second difference. So I wonder if he picked up a slowdown that last time round. Of course, same drivers in that car since the start of the race. So I'm very surprised that Tempest are losing time. And, you know, whilst, you know, like I said, they did take a longer pit stop, but only by 8.5 seconds. And they're now 13 seconds behind Back Pain and Ice Train. So they're sort of lost 4 seconds since the pit stops. So a little bit concerning there for Tempest. And so Jorge Augusto needs to up that pace and try to get that gap back down under 9 seconds so that they do have that net second place when all the pit stops sort themselves out. We love to see some strategy, and often in the GTDs it can be a little bit of a dull one when it comes to strategy in these 3-hour-long races, because it can just be a case of hitting on the hour and maybe there's a bit of fuel saving, that's about it. But very different tonight, very contrasting strategies, and of course also the drivers have got to contend with the limited tyre sets where they only get 3 tyre sets, and in a 4-stint race that means that one of your stints you are going to have to run an older set of tyres. So picking and choosing when to do that is very important. Imperial Motorsports could go for a move here. They certainly have got the pace to at least keep up and maybe even to pass, but no interest in that. They'll save a little bit of fuel sitting in the slipstream and allow Tempest to remain in that rust jump position.
Yeah, indeed. As you can see, the intervals between Imperial Motorsports and Tempest Sport just getting smaller and then growing bigger as well. So it's good to see that Imperial Motorsports are really heavily fuel saving there, as you can see, through Indianapolis being 2 tenths now to 5 tenths behind. And that slipstream effect is going to pull them straight back on the rear end of the Tempest Simsport car as well, so no real issue for them there either. But it seems like their goal here is just to fuel save as much as they can and keep that car in a stable condition towards their second stop as well. And another close battle on track as well would be, this Dog Bear Black and Sim Racing PR a GG3 battle as well on track for 5th place so far, who have a decently clean track ahead of them. No traffic to see for the near future as well for them, so they're going to have some comfortable running as well. And I should imagine it's the same kind of process for these guys as well as the Imperial Motorsports team, which is just be to fuel save and keep their car intact for the second stint as well. As we see, Dubai Racing are marginally above average sim racers, still a part of that battle as well, so they are not giving up their stride at all. But the gaps have just spread out a little bit more than they would have hoped as well. But they're definitely still in it. Traffic can still make a big time loss as well, as we saw last time with Jorge Augusto having a 4-minute that time with a few bits of traffic here and there as well. So, yeah, maybe that can come into play for them. But this is definitely a good battle here for 5th place for the GG3 drivers as well. And another close battle as well I'm seeing is the RD Synthport and We Too Fast Racing LMDH battle that's currently separated by 3 attempts, as well as the Penguin RC Simulation battle there ahead of them as well, separated by 2 attempts. But this is definitely closing up a little bit more than they would have hoped as well, with that incident from Jack going to the corner before Teta Rouge as well. So yeah, good to see there, right on the back of RD Synthport there, putting on a nice fight for them to have at this hour stage in the race as well. But yeah, good battles going on so far, but I suppose that the main mindset for these guys is just to kind of sit behind and keep full saving. As you see Imperial Motorsports coming through turn 1. This might be a slowdown in the exit of the Dunlop chicane. I believe, no, it's a slowdown for Tempest Simsport actually. So Jorge Augusto loses out to Imperial Motorsports there after a slowdown at the first chicane there for them. So yeah, unfortunately by Jorge, his lap times keep getting slower and slower so far, but he's still on the rear end of the Imperial Motorsports car, separated by 6 attempts so far.
Yeah, he's had a really struggling second stint, hasn't he? I think that's the second slowdown he's picked up in the past 20 minutes or so. And that second place now very distant. They are now 16 seconds behind. He's lost about 8 seconds in this second stint in comparison to Back Pain and Ice Train, which they were nose to tail with in the opening stages of the race. It's always a question that I ask whenever we visit Le Mans. I think it's always a fun question to ask at any circuit that you visit, really, but particularly Le Mans, because this circuit has changed so much over the years. There's been so many different iterations. But do you think there's any changes to this circuit that could be made which wouldn't make yourself or the motorsports world generally, sorts of be very fearful of? Because after all, this circuit is very different to how it used to be. Can you see any changes to the Le Mans circuit over the next couple of decades? Or do you think this is almost the end state that we're going to see of this track, and any changes in the future are going to be minimal?
I think the changes should be minimal, really. I mean, this track is so iconic in its way that it is at the moment, and I don't really see an area for improvement at all anywhere, really. I mean, the track has pretty much just a handful of everything. Slow corners with the first sector, and there was some high-speed sections with Porsche curves, and the straights galore as well for the slipstream to occur too. So yeah, I don't think anything needs to change, because it provides good racing, as we're seeing here today. Lots of good battles here on track, as you see. Dubai Racing on the back of Sim Racing PR. This 3-way battle coming in. There's a very defensive maneuver by Carlos there. 3 wide going to Indianapolis. And Carlos comes out the better of that as well, with Dog Bear Black trying to fight away from Dubai Racing team, who tried to hang around the outside but doesn't get the move done too soon. It's still side by side, a little bit of overlap there for Cloud and the Dubai Racing team as well, going deep down on the inside. Oh, just shoves him out wide on the left-hander there and runs him off into the turf section, almost into the barrier there as well. Does that Jose, but Carlos coming in at the better end of that, and around about a second gap for him against the Dubai Racing team and Dog Bear Black. But as you were just saying, yeah, I don't think any changes need to be made. That was some great racing there on a great bit of the racetrack.
That's a very good point. That was fantastic, and I thought we were going to see 3 wide going into Indianapolis, but I think maybe on the last lap they could have perhaps attempted that one, but I think Tupe making the wise decision, and Dog Bear in very quick succession losing a couple of positions. I did once suggest that we should have the Suzuka S's all the way down the Mulsanne straights, but I didn't think that got a whole lot of traction amongst people. I think It's so tricky to imagine this circuit being different. Of course, we should have 8 different characteristics for different circuits. And this one certainly does have its very distinct, character to it. Yeah, it is tricky to see any changes being made because they have done a brilliant job at making it really as safe as possible, this circuit. Oh, there's going to be contact between the GTDs and the P2 as well, who was coming through. And I think they've all got away with that one. I don't think there was going to be any penalties either on that case. But that could have been a lot worse there for Sim Racing PR, who did get a tap from Toupé, but I think Toupé only went deep due to the contact from the P2 car who was storming their way through.
Yeah, it looked like to me that Jose was trying to move, down the inside of the Sim Racing PR car and didn't realize that the LMDH there was still on this left-hand side, at least from what it looked like from the outboard shot anyway. If we can get a cockpit shot as well, that'd be great as well to see exactly what happened on that Super Racing Team car. But yeah, no damage to them two so far, but it seems like Jose tried to move down the inside of the Sim Racing PR car and just didn't realize the LMDH was still there. As we see this battle still going on so far between these two drivers who have been, Jose's been very aggressive so far with most of his move and gets it done fairly early on in the Mulsanne chicane, at the first chicane as well, going down to the second one as well. Yeah, good move so far from Jose, but a little bit of a miscommunication there between most of the drivers going into the first corner, as we see possibly another move being made by Sim Racing PR, who might have enough of the slipstream to get on the back of Super Racing Team in front. Maybe not, only 2 attempts separates them two, but probably not enough to make a big lunge going into the second Mulsanne chicane here, being the quicker of the two chicanes at Le Mans so far. But yeah, no moves being made so far, but definitely a little bit of miscommunication at the very start of the lap there.
Yeah, and the car he was going through, by the way, was the RD Simsports LMDH, Archie Coffney at the wheel of that car. So, yeah, very fortunate for everyone to get through that unscathed. But Toupé seemed to always be overtaking drivers. They've had a lot of overtaking. So it was a little bit of an underwhelming qualifying for them. But they are back to where they were at the start of this race. But yeah, a setback so far now, 13.4 seconds to catch up to the car ahead, which is the Tempest Simsport 101 car, Jorge Augusto. Of course, the tricky stint that Augusto has had so far, and pretty much all these drivers on the same strategy as well. They all took tyres and they all took a maximum amount of fuel at their last pit stop. So this is absolutely for position, and could well be a trio that we see close to one another in the closing stages of this race, as they have a few more MTHs to get through. I think this is a Finn Lazier and also Peter Sikdar for Penguin RC Simulation and RD Simsport number 2. And around one of the narrow parts of the track through Indianapolis and Arnage, they all managed to deal with it very well. This one's called Curb du Boisson, the kink that they just went through.
Wow.
And then into Porsche curves. You learn so much from racingcircuits.info. What a wonderful website.
Yeah, I didn't actually know they named kinks. That's pretty interesting as well. As we can see, the managing of traffic here for most of the LMDHs and GT3s. There we saw Finn Lazier and Jack Christie there as well for the LMDHs of RD Simsport 2 and We2 Fast Racing coming through that bit of traffic there. It's very close for We2 Fast Racing on the back of RD Simsport as well, but got caught out going through the right-hander there after Indianapolis as well. As Jack Christie actually pits, so one of the first people to pit very early on. That is a very early pit stop for LMDH to come in this early on. So may not have been fuel saving as much with Jack Christie compared to everyone else. So yeah, coming to the pits now. Same with the Tempest Simsport leader and LMP2 right behind, following in concession as well. Yeah, most LMP2s will be starting their pit or second round of pit stops right now, and we should see more LMDHs come in next lap too. But yeah, first of the pit stops for We2 Fast Racing. Let's see if that causes any issues for him coming out behind traffic at all.
Yeah, and this is very much committing them to a 5-stop strategy. Or is it? Am I being thick? I might be being thick. Maybe it's no. They could still do a 4-stop. They might have to do an extra long stint towards the end of this race. But I think a 4-stop is still just about possible for those drivers. But it will be tight. The drivers who have been able to stay out in the prototype class, they are looking much more confident at a 4-stop strategy. And yeah, you really don't want to take that extra tour down the pit lane. It's a very slow pit lane, and a decently long one in that pit entry as well can also lose you a decent amount of time as Jack Chrissy re-enters the circuit and remaining in that car. So one would expect he might do this stint and then gets out, or maybe if they've got a little bit more confidence in the We2 Fast Racing squad, maybe he will go another 2 stints and then just hand over with about 40 minutes of the race or so for his co-driver. But the 69 absolutely pushing as hard as he possibly can onto the Mulsanne straight. And will be close between him and Penguin RC Simulation RD SimSport 2 when they make their pit stops, what we think will be at the end of this lap.
Yeah, it is. We can see another battle here for GT3 with Dog Bear and Sim Racing PR. Their Ferrari and Lamborghini, they're getting nice and tussled in, allowing 2-Pilot Racing Team to blast and win the distance there. But yeah, as you mentioned before, RD SimSport 2 is going to be their main battle with We2 Fast Racing. So yeah, we'll be interested to see where they come out in terms of their position there as well. But as you can see on the track map, the number 4 coded LMDH on the green on the right hand side is having a little bit of traffic to deal with as well going into Indianapolis. So that may cause some issues for him as well, as we see the leader, which is Pablo Espes, still coming to the pits, and we're focusing on United Motorsports back onto Pablo Espes pitting in from the lead of the race, and a very dominant leading of the race so far for him. 29 seconds gap compared to the rest of the field out there as well, followed by Archie Coveney in P2 as well, who should be coming in at the end of this lap if we're following this pitch strategy. But yeah, we'll soon find out as well where he will come out, and more importantly for the race kind of organisation of it all, RD SimSport 2, who are in a battle with We2 Fast Racing, who were separated by only a second before coming into the pits. As we see Archie right on cue coming into the pit lane, and we should see Penguin RC Simulation and RD SimSport 2 following closely behind. And you can see on the right hand side they are pitting in as well. So yeah, second stop happening here, as you mentioned before, Sam. 5 stops pretty much coming up for this race so far. And yeah, a lot of traffic to deal with so far. Traffic starting to get spread around all over the place so far, as Jack Chrissy has, as you can see on the track map, a little bit of traffic, not too much, probably a bit of a hindrance through Porsche curves if you catch up to them too soon. But yeah, shouldn't probably do him too much damage there as well, as he's trying to beat RD SimSport out of the pit lane as well. As we see a side-by-side for Blue Shell Racing and Sim Republic SR3 does that move before we get to the corner itself as well. So yeah, good move by Dick Mueller there for Blue Shell Racing as he comes through to Mulsanne Chicane 2. Nice and orderly move there, doesn't cause too many issues for himself, and sets sail away from Nathan Sulano for Sim Republic SR3.
And Sim HQ Motorsports Red with that drive-through penalty earlier on. Ewan Marshall's been catching up to these guys for a while, and he's nearly caught them past them now. I remember, I think commentating on Ewan, I think you took part in the Sim Racers World GT3 Sprint Series about 4 years ago, I think. And so he's an absolute veteran when it comes to sim racing, and on Apex Racing TV. I think it was you. I'm almost certain it was. So yeah, great to see him back out in Apex Racing 2. I probably said that in round 1 as well. I've just forgotten it. But yes, it is great to see these guys come back in series that you don't expect to see them return in. But yeah, Dick Mueller very comfortable there in that position. Of course, only recently pitting, and yeah, might be able to start pulling away now. Up 5 places, by the way, up Blue Shell Racing. Started down in P9, and so that race pace has been absolutely phenomenal recently. And well, I think this would be their best result of the season as well. They've had a 5th and a 6th so far this championship, and so a 4th would be a nice collection to that. And well, with 3 rounds to go, really, oh, I mean, I guess they could do worse, but it's a positive upwards trend, and maybe they could end the season with a win if they continue with this correlation.
Yeah, indeed. This Blue Shell Racing car has shown some good pace towards this this end of the stint as well, and yeah, really pulling away from this little pack here for 5th, 6th, and 7th as well. So good to see him on the charge there. They should be pitting in. Note them staying out as well, because they've already had their pit stops, as I just reminded myself. So they are setting away for their 3rd stint, I believe this is so far in the race as well. And just an update there for the 4th and 5th place LMDH of RD SimSport and We2 Fast Racing. Jack Chrissy still in the car for We2 Fast Racing and is 2.9 seconds away from iRTES Sport 2, who was actually 4.5 seconds after the pit stop as well. So they lost a fair bit of time in the pit stop compared to, well, on the outlap as well, compared to iRTES Sport 2, with a little bit of traffic in Porsche curves as well, as there is the iRTES Sport car. There is now swap drivers with Neil Tistas in the car, who I've raced with a few times as well, and there's a fairly good driver at the wheel behind that MDH as well. So good to see him out and about as we see 100 force of Justin Lemeli getting wrong all sorts of shapes in the final sector there. See a replay of what happened to him. I believe this will be over the last curb as you see him coming through the final sector here. Probably just loops it over the curb, going through the final chicanes now. Comes over to the left-hand side. Yeah, just the car too loose behind him. And yeah, goes for a little spin over the final curb there. Sorry, yeah, shame for Justin there for 100 Force Racing. I believe that's the second time we've seen that car go a bit loosey-goosey over the final chicane there. So shame that that's happening for their car here today. But going back to the GT3s.
It may have been a slight mistake actually there. I think that's maybe why we went to iRTES Sim Sport 4 because yeah, that gap's only at 5.5 seconds now. It's been 10 seconds for a while, so this is quite a mistake coming up here.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. I saw the gap come down fairly abruptly, and yeah, there it is as well. Stephen, they're getting all sorts of wrong on the curb. They're just letting go of him slightly, and yeah, comes back into shape. Didn't lose a whole bunch of time though, so maybe Vincent Marsh has found a bit more pace and started to charge towards that iRTES Sport car in front.
Yeah, very much hope for the rest of the teams, which didn't seem to be the case in the early stage when iRTES seemed so dominant. But back paying a nice streak, only 5.8 seconds in, and considering that the iRating differences, well, Marsh has got half the iRating. He's almost got my iRating deficit as alongside into the forward chicanes. That's going to lose these guys a lot of time. This is Villa Vencio ahead of the dog pair Motorsports car, but again they're going to be alongside, and we see plenty of good action in MotoGP around this part of the circuit. This is often one of the main overtaking spots through turn 1 and into the Dunlop chicane, but they halt the alongside racing, and I think acknowledge that we've got the very long milestone straights on approach, a little bit less encouragement to make the move around that part of the circuit. And so Dogbear, after dropping as low as well as 6th before, are back up into P5. But 2Pay Racing Team, who remember were battling with these guys only about 5 or 10 minutes ago, are now a long way clear. They're about 5 seconds up the road.
Yeah, good to see this little battle still keeping its shape and keeping its form after all this time. An hour and 21 minutes we are into this race, almost towards that halfway point as well. So great to see that this battle is still alive and well, as we can see the Lamborghini right on the rear end of that Ferrari. A bunch of slipstream coming through now, maybe able to get it, not quite, just fuel saves instead. Doesn't think it's worth going for a move right now, and that's a safe thing to do so as well with the margin above other sim racers in the Porsche right behind there, watching on as well. So yeah, a bit of fuel saving tactics here from Carlos to extend that pit strategy as much as you can, as we see in the DH there. Obviously make Screen Motorsports Orange go through. And yeah, good little battle here, and it's good to see that this battle is still raging on this far into the race.
By the way, our broadcaster is doing a fantastic job, as he always does, Samuli Kumo. Just letting us know that he supports the Suzuka S's going down the Mulsanne straight. So we're gathering some momentum now for this change. Let us know on the chat if you would like the Suzuka S's to be brought over in a big ship and planted here in the French countryside instead of the Mulsanne Straits. I think it might have Lexus, so do let us know if he supports that one. Yes, and let us know if you disagree with that one, as I imagine the majority of people would do. Marshall and above average sim racers have been really charging along recently, of course gaining a lot of time when the 2 cars ahead of them were alongside at the start of this lap. And so the 911 machine could soon be passed. However, these cars are alongside one another Are we going to see Silverstone through Indianapolis for the first time tonight? I think we are going to.
Ooh.
And these two leaving each other plenty of space so far. Good respectful racing. But this will continue all the way into Arnage as well. And it looks like Dogbear have been able to maintain that position. Sim Racing PR not able to return to that 5th position so far. And with a small gap and maybe a toe from a prototype ahead, I think Dogbear will be safe going into the Porsche Cups.
Yeah, indeed. Good to see that aggressive manoeuvres going to Indianapolis again. It's really easy to do so with the camber nature. The outside line is still very powerful, as Dogbear showed there as well. Good to see some aggressive driving to block that kind of outside line off onto the rundowns of the Porsche curves as well. So yeah, good racing from Cloud Belaval, and also all three GT3 stars as well. As you see a manoeuvre with Dick Muller and Ewan Marshall there as well, who's actually getting up into 4th place as well. So good to see Ewan climbing back through the order after that penalty earlier on during the race as well, up into 4th place now and really gaining momentum on the rest of the guys ahead. He's charging up into RD Simsport 3 as well. As we see a little bit of a change in position for We Too Fast Racing and RD Simsport. It looks like a slowdown for RD Simsport actually. They're losing a lot of time down this straight, so it must have been a slowdown for Niels out of Tessa Rouge there, making it very easy for Jack Ritchie to get in front.
Yeah, and interestingly, a GT3 around that region as well. So I wonder if that was parts of it as well. Yeah, a lot of time lost for RD Simsport 2. So Penguin RC Simulation now a comfortable P3, but Jack Chrissy, do not rule him out. He's back to where he started. And yeah, Niels Teasters maybe struggling a little bit so far in this stint, but Teasters with 5.1k iRating. He's got a very strong iRating. Espes, by the way, with 9k. So Pablo clearly ahead, and that's why he's got a 35-second advantage, because we all know that drivers above 5k have the 5k griphacks.exe, which helps them along. I mean, I know Owen will deny that one, but
yeah, no comment.
He has to deny it, but we all know that's the reason. And then RD Simsport with Archie Coveney with 5.7, Blake Reynolds for Penguin with 4.4, Jack Chrissy for We Too Fast with 3.1, and then yeah, Teasters for RD Simsport 2 with 5.1. But remember, only recently getting into that car, and so still getting used to it, and some nice uniformity as well with the iRating averages across the classes that you can see up on the screen there.
Yeah, as we see another battle for Sim Racing PR and Dogbear Black as well. A fairly easy move for Carlos to make here, going to the second Marshall chicane. Dogbear Black still looking towards the inside of the corner, backs out of it just ever so slightly. And yeah, allows Sim Racing PR to have the line through the Marshall chicane. So this battle was livening up a little bit as well, and livening up nicely too, allowing Tupine to really extend their lead over this little battle to around 5 seconds there as well. As you can see him on the bottom left-hand side of the screen now. Into 4th place they are as well. So this little battle allows Carlos to slip up into 5th place, and Dogbear Black into 6th as well. But this battle shows no signs of resting down anytime soon, unless Dogbear Black can have the nice exit here going to Indianapolis and get the slipstream all the way down into Indianapolis as well. They both go into the gravel a little bit, losing a little bit of straight line speed on the exit. But yeah, it seems like they are too far away to make any sort of moves here. Around about 4 attempts separates the two cars here for 6th and 5th place so far. But this battle seems a bit done and dusted at the minute, so far anyway, unless we have a little bit of traffic from the LMP2 behind, which could allow Sim Racing PR to slip back into the hands of Dogbear Black here. Doesn't look like he's going to send it down the inside too much. The 2nd place of John Jory Banks for Penguin RC Simulation. As you see a little bit of a looping on the inside of the Indianapolis there, goes down the inside, then mine backs out of it, but Dogbear Black allows them to have a nice line through Arnage and onto the back straight towards Porsche curves.
It's a real tight battle, this one, when it comes to the best names so far in this race, because Carlos Villavicencio is stunning. I mean, that's top tier stuff. That's really good stuff. But then, of course, we just saw John Majori Banks, and that's A tier as well. So it's really tricky to decide that one. Really high quality stuff from the drivers. And we will keep an eye out on any other, top names. I think Matthew Wyckoff, I think that's a solid name. You know, maybe B tier, but I mean, let's face it, it's not the A tier that we've seen in the LMDH and the LMP2 classes. So yeah, we wait to see if there's going to be any improvements on that front. But yeah, really good effort from the participants on that front.
Yeah, indeed. The names of these drivers are also a good factor as well into these races of personality-wise, as we see Claude Bellevalve going through around the outside of turn 1 here. They were side by side going into that corner there, so it must have been a little bit of a slow exit from the final chicane from Sim Racing PR Machine by Don Cello Machine Shop, the 21 Lamborghini there as well. So yeah, good to see this battle is still living up as well. A little bit of a separation now to 5-6 tenths there between the two cars here, but that slipstream is going to bring Dogware Black right into to the rear end of Sim Racing PR, and their battle is not done yet.
Once again, another thanks to our title sponsor for this series, Penguin RC Simulation. Penguin RC Simulation providing steering wheel boxes, button boxes, and transmission control packages for your sim racing peripheries. Do check out their website, penguinrc.com, in order to check out their services, which are made for SimuQ, Fanatec, and VRS equipment as well. Big thanks to them for supporting the series and making this broadcast possible. Here is Team Breakfade with Backpain and Eye Strain Racing Team. Well, coming very close to this move for Vernon Rhodes there, heading into the first chicane, but for now, Team Breakfade are holding on to that position. The UKNI driver of James Foster, very much in a field dominated by North Americans, certainly behind him, and a fair few lined up ahead of him as well. Just Steve Mello and Jorge Auguste in the top 2 positions in the GT3 category, breaking that stronghold of North American drivers. In fact, actually, on the last lap, it was Foster who was faster than Volt. So, actually, I think Foster with the slight momentum, and an odd one, which I hadn't really noticed before, but the setback for Backpain and Ice Train Racing, who were as high as 2nd place not long ago, now down to 8th position. They have had a driver change with Vernon Royd, but I don't see a particularly long pit stop for them. Apologies, they took their pit stop early. That's my bad. I apologise. Ignore what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I thought to myself, yeah, how have they gone down from 2nd to 8th? And I looked at their pit time, and I thought, or their pit lap, and I thought, okay, they pitted very early on, which makes sense now. So I was going to say, yeah, shame to see them drop all the way down to 8th, but this is just their net position for now, and then the pit stop starts to work itself out, which is good to see as well. That they're still in a fighting force, even though they are in a battle for 7th place. They should hopefully be within the top kind of 3 or 4 places at the front there as well. So good to see them rather front still, as we see. Oh, and then B2 trying to navigate their way through traffic. That's the Blue Shell Racing Team, I think, kind of trying to get through the Team Breakfade and Backpain and the Ice Stream Racing Team cars there, going a little bit onto the curb as well. But yeah, good to see that they're still in fighting spirits. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they come out in terms of the pit strategy, where all starts to level out when everyone makes their final stops.
I think about a year ago, or maybe a couple of years ago, we were broadcasting a 24-hour race here at Le Mans. I think we had a bit of a quiz when it came to the history of the Le Mans circuit, and there is a fair amount of history to this circuit, as a Toupe racing team, Atape, come into the pits in GT3, so on the halfway mark pretty much in this race. And I'm going to be posing these same questions to you here. And so, first up, and I just need a decade here. Just need a decade.
Okay.
What decade was the first race held at the Circuit de la Sarthe?
Oh dear. I'm going to say.
And let us know on the chat as well, even though chances are. Well, let us know on the chat quickly now before Owen says his answer, rather than wait for Owen to say his answer, please.
This will be a tough one for me. My history is very poor with motorsports knowledge, but I'll try my best as well. That's a tough one. I mean, wait, is this might be a little cheap, but isn't this the 100th year of Le Mans?
You can use that logic if you want. What I would say is that the first race wasn't necessarily 24 hours long, so it's not necessarily the 24 hours. I'm not saying that you're incorrect necessarily in thinking that logic, but I would just add that comment.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say 1930s.
Oh, it was 1920s.
Oh,
You should have stuck with the 100
stuck
years.
with it. Yeah, that's it. I should have stuck with it. My fault.
Well, there you go. I think most people got that wrong, to be fair, when we were asking that last year. Yes, I'll come back with a couple more questions before the end of this race. By the way, anyone who's jumped out of the car, and of course we have had a lot of driver changes who are watching the broadcast, thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you're enjoying the racing as we see the three classes all alongside one another for a moment there on the Mulsanne. If you want to have a chat with us, do so. Join the Apex Racing TV Discord server. There's a link to that in the description below. Click on that, jump into the interview waiting area 1, and we will drag you up and we'll have a chat with how your race is going and yeah, what the plan is for the rest of the event. So certainly do that because we do very much appreciate any insight, any extra insight we can get into what's going on out in the circuit.
Yeah, it's always great to have a little bit of an insight of what the drivers are thinking and, you know, what's going through their minds in terms of the team strategy games and them actually driving the track itself. So, yeah, if you do feel like coming for a chat with us, then feel free to, of course, as we see Rick still in the car for LMP2, Temper Simsport leading car with a substantial lead of just below 30 seconds there as well. Obviously, Rick being a very talented LMP2 driver, a veteran of the car as well. Again, as I said before, I remember racing him many times, especially at Road America, where he gave me a good few fights a couple of months back as well. So yeah, very good driver with a good result to you know, express that as well with 29 seconds leading the race so far. As we see Steve Mello for iRTES Simsport with another huge lead of 32 seconds coming into the box for, I believe this is the third pit stop for the GT3s so far here today. So yeah, he's into the box, and I should believe some of the GT3s would also be boxing fairly soon. I'm pretty sure Temper Simsport and Backpain and Isham, well, Backpain actually pitted early on as we remember before, and Temper Simsport should be not pitting this lap, right on cue there as well. Doesn't pit, stays out from potentially another 2 laps as well. Already stayed out on the first run, one more than iRTES Simsport, and still another time against them as well. So possibly going 2 laps further. Obviously, you can't do much with the strategy in terms of a 32-second gap so far, but it could be better for their P2 so far and keeping that alive so far as well. As we see Carlos Villavicencio, there we go, English words, thank you, coming into the pit lane, as well as Dog Bear Black as well coming in as well right behind them. That battle is still very much alive in this race, as well as we see Penalty Simulation making their stop as well. iRTES Sports already left the pit lane. And yeah, they are taking their tyres on as well, as we see a little bit of driver change for Sim Racing PR as well. Yes, as well for Dogware Black. So most of these guys are making their driver changes right now. We should see some more G3s follow that as well. But Steve Mello is staying in the car, and rightly so. He has been on ultra form and was on really good form as well during Fuji last round. So it makes sense that they're staying in it and keeping him in for a little bit longer than halfway. As well. So yeah, he's out for another stint, and I'm sure that for the next stint he will be out of the car, and his team will be taking over to follow him.
Yeah, and no tyre change, at least from what I saw as well. Mello's car, he was staying firmly on the ground during his pit stop, and his pit stop time suggests that as well. So just a shorter stint coming up for him. Now I think it's still a decently long stint, to be fair, like 31 seconds worth of fuel. So he only took about 10 seconds less worth of fuel than the other drivers. So, I mean, we're looking potentially at upwards of 35 minutes in the car. So his teammate will not be getting a whole lot of time in the car, potentially less than 55 minutes in the car, his teammate. But as long as that all abides by their fair share rules, then they should have very little stopping them on their mission. In the GTDs, of course, so many cars taking their pit stops recently. apart from, I guess, Tempest Simsport, you know, staying out there in the race lead at the moment. Back Pain and Ice Jam, of course, were in second place. However, since Vernon Road has got in that car, Vernon not quite with the same pace as his teammate, who was running in the 3-minute 56s. Vernon seems fairly locked in at the moment in the 4 minutes. Vernon's teammate was, I think, 2.2k rating, but very much punching above his weight, but Vernon 1.7k. So you do expect a little bit of a time drop off, and to give credit to Vernon, he is consistent in those 4 minutes, but that might not be the pace that they require to remain in that second position. So watch out for that one. Back Pain and Ice Cream were comfortable in that second place, but I think soon they might come under increasing pressure from Tempest and marginally above average.
Yeah, indeed. They have had great pace so far as well. Obviously, keeping that fairly alive so far here, being, well, having a pretty decent gap towards the rest of the field behind them so far. So good that they're keeping that alive and keeping a podium place alive as well. As we see, Two-Bar Racing Team and Sim Racing PR going at it as well. So a great pit stop by Sim Racing PR to come out just behind. Who's a Ramirez as well, who is the new driver for Two-Bar Racing Team here as well, and Edison Rodas Hernandez as well, a new driver for Sim Racing PR. So good that they're having a little battle here, which could end up in a move going on into the Mustang corner. Edison going onto the right hand side. Doesn't seem like he's making a move so far, just saving a bit of fuel and probably saving it for the Indianapolis corner as well. So good to see that their pit stop time was quick enough to get right on the rear end of Two-Bar Racing Team, with Dogbear Black falling short behind of around 4 seconds or so behind the Sim Racing PR and Two-Bar Racing Team train in front. So yeah, that battle was got a little bit closer, similar to what it was before, for 6th, 7th and 8th place as it stands so far. And yeah, good to see that battle is still very much alive.
And Ramirez and Hernandez should stay with one another to the end of the race, because their I ratings are 3,380 compared to 3,371.
Oh, wow.
9 I rating difference between the two drivers. So if anyone's going to stay close to one another to the end of the race, it will be them. So that could be really entertaining in the closing stages. There is the Tempest Sim Sport car. Of course, their pit stop not yet complete, and they have gone significantly further. I mean, I think you identified it before, Owen, when they initially went that extra lap. But yeah, I'm just looking at their times. I mean, it kind of, I don't know, it's not a big surprise that they've been able to go this far, because I think a lot of the teams haven't been going for like a full tank and been trying to even out the stints. But a different mentality here from Tempest, which is basically go as far as they possibly can on at least this second stint, because this is now their 17th lap in this stint. Yeah, just run it dry, and then, well, I guess you'd expect a driver change at the end of this stint coming up, but yeah, it leaves them in the lead for a little bit, and could well work out for them. Dare I say, with Back Pain and Ice Strain struggling a little bit now for pace, Tempest have a very strong chance at P2. They might even come out of the pits in second place.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, they have the pace so far. Jorge Agosto is not a slow GT3 driver at all. Steve Miller has been romping away with it, but definitely don't count on Jorge Agosto here at the final stages of his stint as well, and obviously going for another stint, or they should be afterwards as well. Steve Miller staying in the car, so maybe Jorge's still going to stay in the car as well. But yeah, we'll soon find out when he pits at the end of this lap as well. But yeah, not many changes elsewhere that I can see so far. It's more just stayed the same, with a close battle between SimHQ Motorsports Red and Blue Shell Racing that's still very much alive there, as we can see. Ewan Marshall, after that penalty early on in the race, has moved up into 4th and stayed in 4th for quite a while. A little bit of pressure from Blue Shell Racing behind, of Dick Mueller behind as well. So yeah, pretty close between the two of them so far, but doesn't seem to be any movements going on too soon anyway, with only a 10-second gap in front of Ewan Marshall to RD Sim Sport 3 in front of him. So yeah, not many movements so far, just mainly for the pit strategies to work themselves out, and I'm sure that the LMP2s will be pitting fairly soon, maybe at the end of this lap or the next, as well, as their pit times should be coming close to their final run.
Yes, we're not too far away from that stage coming across, and well, good job from the drivers so far about the incidents that we've had, because I'm looking at the penalty sheet. I think I've only had 2 so far in this race. I'm not even sure if one of them was one of them was just a stern warning. That was for not turning up for the driver briefing, and then the one drive-through that we did have wasn't really too bad driving. I think it probably did deserve a drive-through, but it was a much more. And Steve
Oh,
Mello, wow, we have not seen anything like this from Steve Mello so far, and that is round at Arnage. And just a little bit of a chink in the armor. Well, to be fair, Steve did make a similar mistake at
yeah.
that corner earlier on, didn't he? So he's not liking this one. And yeah, that one's lost him a good chunk of time.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much just the same thing that he did earlier on, but pretty much a higher stake as well. Pretty much he got on the curb, and that kind of spun up the rear tires a little bit while it's on the curb. And the first time round, he kind of just looped it a little bit on the inside and was able to catch it. But this time, it just went round at him, and the rear tires did not like that whatsoever. So yeah, his Porsche guys are going to be a little bit sketchier than usual as we see Jorge Augusto make his pit stop now. So yeah, wouldn't have shaked up the order too much. Obviously, I didn't support that massively compared to everyone else, but definitely brought them closer to the competition around them for when the driver changes start happening. And maybe if Steve's teammate is not as quick as Steve himself, then we could see a swap at some point. But as we see Paulo J. Fonseca coming to pits now and changes over from Jorge for 10% Sport as we see Steve Mello cross the line and take back P1 right now. And that is a comfortable P1 takeover in the pit lane for them so far. With Backpain Livestream Racing only 31 seconds behind Steve Mello there.
I think I'm going to line up the second question for your quiz.
Here we go.
I think this one's actually trickier,
Okay.
but we'll see how you get on. I would like you to name, once again, I'm just asking for a decade, as Tempest comes out in PT, so they have got ahead of Backpain and Ice Train, so good work there from that team. New driver Fonseca in the car. What decade did the Bugatti circuit host its one and only Formula One circuit, Formula One event?
Oh.
In what decade did the Bugatti circuit host its one and only Formula One race?
I'm going to go with a very comfortable answer and say the 1950s.
Oh, you're one decade out again. It's the 1960s, 1967.
That was my gut answer, and I went away from it again. I need to stop doing that. I should trust my gut a bit more.
I'll give you the point if you can name the driver who got the lap record for the year.
God.
It's 1967, so I mean, there's a few drivers who maybe you're aware of the time. It's one of the bigger ones. I mean, it's one that you'll certainly be familiar with.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and just say Jim Clark and hope it's right.
I don't think you could got much closer. It was Graham Hill.
Oh,
so I think they may have been teammates at the time. I'm not entirely sure.
Oh.
So that was an unlucky one. Well, there you go. I don't know if anyone else would have got that. Apparently, it used to be in GP Legends, which of course was a bit of a precursor to iRacing. So any long-term sort of iRacing fans would have known that one. But I do appreciate it's very tricky. I would have guessed 1970s myself. So very tricky one. Any other random Le Mans facts that anyone wants to put in the chats, we would very much appreciate them. As we see this battle, and these guys are not separating out whatsoever. And like I said, only 9 iRacing between these drivers. Tupe Racing team with Josu Ramirez at the wheel, and then the Argentinian. Great to see some Latin American representation out on circuit with Edson Rojas Hernandez in the Sim Racing PR machine, running in 7th place.
Yeah, indeed. As we mentioned before, this battle is not showing any signs of settling down. A bit of bump drafting going on between the two of them there as well. So it seems that Edison's mindset is just a fuel save as he pips out to the right-hand side, just showing them that he's still there, not just a complete non-threat to the Super Racing machine at all. But yeah, it's definitely one to watch for the mid-stages in the race as well. Maybe he can get to a point where he can save enough fuel that he can kind of make the move and go one lap extra compared to the Super Racing team. Maybe starts to challenge towards the marginally above average sim races, although that gap is around about, I want to say, is that 4 seconds that I'm seeing? Yes, around about 4 seconds that I'm seeing on my screen here for that battle. But yeah, it's definitely not over until it's over. So maybe that's the mindset of Edison behind to save fuel and get past 2 just before their pit stop happens and start on the charge towards the top steps.
It'll be interesting to see sort of what pace Tempest SimSport are able to produce in second place. I think Tempest have just made a mistake in fact, because that gap is dropping down. It was 2.5 seconds, and it could be very close now. I wonder if that was a slowdown. Paulo Fonseca only just recently getting into that car, and the gap was 2.5 seconds when he left the pit lane. But now it is much smaller than that. These two, so I'm not 100%. I think Fonseca took tyres at the last stop. He surely did. They changed drivers, so you would almost certainly guarantee that they would have taken tyres. So they're on a similar strategy are these two. I think they'll probably pit at around the same time because Fonseca, or Tempest I should say, went much further in the last stint, but took 6 seconds less of fuel. So I think that should balance it out. They should both be pitting in about half an hour worth of time. But yeah, Fonseca just taking a little while to get used to this car, and of course around this circuit, now that the driver behind is in the tow, he could be under huge pressure at losing that second position.
Yeah, indeed. I did see a little bit of smoke coming out of iRTES there as well, so maybe that was Fonseca in the Tempest SimSport machine. And speaking of Tempest SimSport, Ridiculous pits from the lead of LMP2 there as well. But yeah, maybe a little bit of mistake from the Tempest GT3 driver there out of iRTES, or maybe, as you said, the slowdown during the Porsche curve somewhere may have caused that issue as well. But yeah, that battle was back in full force with Fonseca trying to pull away as much as he can from the back pain and Ice Train Racing team. Piloted by Vernon Roeder there. So yeah, let's see if Vernon can stay on the back of Paolo J. Fonseca for as much as he can. But yeah, that gap is just edging away slowly but surely for Tempest SimSport there.
The LMP2s into into the pits, and yeah, Obsidian as well into the pits right there. And this will be fairly close for them to be able to make it on one more stop after this one. We've been seeing about 35-minute stints, and we've got 70 minutes to go, so should be pretty much perfectly lined up. If we force an extra lap, then it might be a little bit tricky. As yeah, there goes the LMP2 Tempest. Also previously watching the GTD Tempest out the pits and immediately under pressure from behind. New driver in that car, Andre Filipe Villela there. And he has got an I rating of 4.6k, so not quite as high as his teammate, I believe, but very strong nonetheless, a good 1,000 above mine, and I'm sure he will be very happy out there. And with his rival still in the pit lane right now, he has got a very nice gap over the rest of the order.
Yeah, indeed. This is the time where all the LMP2 and then the H drivers start to change their drivers. Of course, we've already seen a few drivers change here and there as well. As we see Juan Segundo Valero there for Obsidian Racing Future, taking over from Pablo Espes. Of course, Pablo being a very much powerhouse driver in LMDH this season so far, and one that's given me quite a few troubles here and there as well. So, yeah, good to see him in this league and doing quite well as well. And Juan Segundo Valero having a really great last outing back in Fuji as well, pulling away from RD SimSport and trying to catch on to the back of them before RD SimSport, of course, had that post-race penalty put onto them, dropping them into second and giving Juan the win in that car as well. But yeah, good to see him back in the lead and yeah, pulling away as much as you can from RD SimSport. As we see Penguin RC Simulation and Dog Bear Black going at it as well. So it seems like Dog Bear Black has lost quite a bit of time and allowed Ray Kingsbury to catch right on the back of him, and does that move before Indianapolis actually comes into effect here. So yeah, it seems like a fairly easy move unless Dog Bear can hang around the outside, which is fairly easy to do here. Doesn't do it as quite, doesn't have the overlap as much as he'd like to, and yeah, missed defeat on that one and steps down into 9th place, allowing Ray Kingsbury in the Penguin RC Simulation machine to slip up into 8th. But oh, Dog Bear Black with a little bit of aggression there into Arnage, tries to go down the inside, but yeah, not deep enough on the brakes and not brave enough there for Shane Norton to try and slip through into roll back into 8th place there for the Dog Bear Black machine. But yeah, good move by Penguin RC Simulation to keep in front, and yeah, good aggression there from Dog Bear Black, but not aggressive enough to take that position back.
Yeah, Penguin have got stronger and stronger as the race has gone on. Ray Kingsbury now in that car, and up 2 places from their race start. Dog Bear, meanwhile, were fighting furiously for 5th and 6th position for such a long period of time, but Of course, they're now down as low as 9th position with Shane Norton in that car. But Shane's pace is strong. It's just that it's a very competitive GTD field. So that is why they've slipped back a little bit so far, as they take that customary wide line into the 4 chicanes near the end of the lap. And we'll start their 28th tour of this Le Mans circuit. Yeah, we'll be on a fair few by the end of this race. Getting pretty close right now. Yeah, it's getting a little bit closer to second place overall in the LMDHs, albeit with the pit stops at play. So it's not too representative as RD Sim Sports come into the pit lane now. Archie Coveney, I think, probably handing over the car, I believe, for this stint, as here is the battle, which will turn into the lead. Or maybe it won't do, because Penguin RC do have to come into the pits, and that will be their penultimate stop as Blake Reynolds really commits to that pit entry. That looked very fast through there, trying to gain whatever they can, because they know a P2 is still possible if they can put some pressure on RD Simsport ahead.
Yeah, indeed. It was good to see as well, you know, that little battle there between Peg and RC and Obsidian Racing. Even though it's not a battle for a net position, it was still good. They were around about like 4 attempts or so throughout that whole lap as well. So Blake Reynolds having the pace there to stay behind that Obsidian Racing future car for a little bit. But before he comes into the box and he gets a fresh set of tyres on, fresh set of fuel, and goes out again to try and hold that position in P3 as well. But yeah, once again over there, it seems like Obsidian have this kind of in the bag so far at the moment. I don't want to cause any commentators curse or whatever so far, but yeah, they're pretty comfortable in the lead so far, and it seems like a track that's been very strong for them so far today. As a 40-second gap now, 41 seconds almost, 41 seconds now gap to RD Sport behind, bringing more comfortability to that Obsidian Racing future car. And I'm sure Pablo is going to take a nice and well-deserved break after that tremendous stint to carry them so far in the league.
Another shout out to one of our sponsors for this event, SimRace 24/7, an independent sim racing network that prides itself on providing news and more to the sim racing community. And whether you are just a rookie or a pro or anything in between, SimRace 24/7 is a place that for all that enjoy sim racing to visit. And yeah, you can check out their race supports, promotions, community support, features, investigations, analysis, and reviews. And yeah, like I said earlier on, after doing some research in the past, as this is a move for position between 2 Lamborghinis, P6 at stake, and that is a 2Play Racing Team ahead of Sim Racing PR. These guys have been so close to one another for a long time. But yeah, just a final word on Sim Race 24/7. Yeah, after doing plenty of research in the past for the late Apex on Apex Racing TV, Sim Race 24/7 were a very good source of knowledge for what was going on in the sim racing world, covering all varieties of sim racing platforms. So big thanks to them for supporting this series. But Jose Ramirez still ahead then of Hernandez, and after a while of I think Hernandez quite happily waiting behind Hosu, that seemed a bit more aggressive and seemingly wants to get past. They are catching up though to Imperial Motorsports, now just 2.5 seconds to Imperial Motorsports ahead.
Yeah, I was about to mention that as well, Sam. Is, you know, the Imperial Motorsports car seemingly has lost a little bit of time compared to 2Play Racing and Sim Racing PR so far. That gap a few laps ago was only about 4.5, 5 seconds, and now, as you said, come down to about 2.6 seconds now. So, yeah, Matt Quinn either struggling a little bit for pace, or the pace behind the 2Play Racing and Sim Racing PR is very, very fast indeed, as they're on the charge for that Audi in front of them. But yeah, that battle between 2Play and Sim Racing PR still very much alive, nose to tail throughout this whole entire stint so far. So great to see for them. And David Anderson in the chat makes a very good point of the tyres so far. We've obviously a tyre limit of 3 tyres for the GT3 guys, causing a little bit of issues maybe towards the end of the race as well, as the track gets hotter, as it has done. Run about a roughly 6-degree increase from the last time we checked in about an hour ago. Obviously 12 a.m. in sim time so far. So yeah, the track is rivaling up and getting hotter and hotter, and that tyre limit may come into full effect here with the tyres getting a little bit more worn down with the hotter track temp, and drivers choosing to take their tyres now rather than earlier on in the race when the track was cooler and the tyre wear wasn't as damaged as before. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes into effect with the strategy here for the guys, and we'll be interested to see what they do in terms of their pit stops in the next few laps.
As we see once again the move, which was seen one time before on the previous lap for Sim Racing PR, but no, yeah, it's just pulling out once again and do slot back in. But yeah, the strategy base so interesting. I mean, it is sort of an underrated feature, and I guess it applies to real life motorsport as well, of course. But in sim racing, it is so pivotal, those track temperatures, because they do change the characteristics of the car vastly, and I think you do certainly gain an appreciation for sort of the dilemmas that real life race engineers have to deal with, because when you see it visually, it's one thing, but to properly drive it in the sim racing world, you really do appreciate just how much difference just small changes to the tyres can make, as there was not a big difference between the two cars heading through the second milestone on that occasion. If anything, it was actually Hernandez having to be a bit more patient on the throttle in the end. But these guys will know exactly where they are all braking and know off by heart where their acceleration points are as well. And still they remain in the same positions as it stands, but still one more straight to come up as Static Adrenaline and 100 Force both come into the pits in the LMDH and LMP2 categories respectively.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it seems like 2Pi Racing is struggling a little bit compared to Sim Racing PR behind. I mean, not entirely, because they are catching up very much so to Matt Quinn ahead of the Imperial Motorsports Audi machine. But it seems like Sim Racing PR wants to get past as quick as they can. Again, going towards the outside a little bit before Indianapolis, which towards the inside, backs out of it just in time. And it seems like that Jose Ramirez doesn't have the raw pace as much as Edison behind does. Compared to the two cars there. But as we focus on to the battle for P3 so far, Backpain Livestream Racing Team being under pressure by marginally above average sim racers. So Vernon struggling a little bit here in the car so far, with Tempo Simsport not too far in front, actually, only 4 seconds in front of this little back here for P3 as well. But yeah, Vernon under pressure here from marginally above average sim racers, with Mark Nister behind at the wheel.
Yeah, it seems like marginally above sim racers have really good strength and depth, where I think their two drivers are very evenly matched, whereas I think since the driver swap we have seen a slight downturn in pace for Tempest and Backplane in Ice Drain. So yeah, marginally above, really looking good potentially for a second position. If it keeps like this, honestly, you would expect them to do so. Their pace is that strong, and we've got a decent amount of the race remaining. Backpain in Ice Drain, by the way, with 2 5th places so far this season. So this would be their best result, even if they lost this position. Marginally above Sim Racers, meanwhile, well, I think they've only had an 8th and a 9th, which is very surprising to see. Maybe setbacks in those races, you would think, because they are looking like absolute bankers on a podium right now, with the pace that Mark Nister is delivering, and this move could come within the next few seconds.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, we have Backpain Livestream Racing Team going out to the left-hand side of the track to defend the outside, actually, into the Martin chicane, which can be beneficial because you have the inside in the middle of the corner and a better exit on the right-hand side as well. As we see Mark Nister pulling along to the inside of the Martin chicane number 1 here. So Mark Nister slips into P3 there, and Margie, well, actually, yeah, Backpain Livestream Racing doesn't try to fight that at all. Allows margin above average sim racers to slip in and pulls away with no real issues there. Pulls straight away into like around about a 6/10 gap so far. So yeah, great stuff from margin above average sim racers to get ahead as quick as they can and keep their momentum going, and back onto the battle for 6th place, well technically 5th place now, with Imperial Motorsports just ahead of them as well. It seems that Edison's still staying on the rear end of that 2Pi Racing machine as well. But yeah, it's still very, very close, and I'm surprised that Jose hasn't gone for a big lunge so far, because if he knew that he had the better place advantage over 2Pi Racing Team, then I would try and get past as quick as I could. Yeah, and try and take Imperial Motorsports for myself, rather than allowing 2Pi to get there first.
Once again, if anyone, any team managers who are maybe doing strategy today, or anyone who's previously been in the car so far in today's race, want to have a chat with us, do make sure to visit the Apex Racing TV Discord, link to that in the description below. Jump into the interview waiting area and we will check you up for a chat. However, in the meantime, I do think it's time for the third question. And so far, Owen Carroll has had an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Perhaps his worst day on iRacing in a very, very long time. And he's got an opportunity here to redeem himself. Now, I'm not going to ask for a decade here, but it's once again years. And I want you to name the year within 5 years. I want you to get within 5 years for this one, so it's pretty much a decade. I want you to name the year that the 2 Mulsanne chicanes were installed here at Le Mans.
I'm going to say 1995.
You got a point. Congratulations.
Wow. There we go.
Right on the fringes, as what we might see alongside here. Once again on the fringes of the circuit for Penguin. Oh, apologies for Sim Racing PR, but no move there as we got a spin round. That's for second place in the P2 car. One of our names of the day, John Marjoribanks. He has spun around at the Mulsanne corner, but seemingly with no setbacks. I think he's just lost 5 seconds or so, and this is a mistake that we've seen a few times, but oh no, it's the GT3 ahead of him, the car number 14. That's what caused the issue. It was Michael Tanagretta for the organisation, and he caused that one himself, just by himself, a self-mistake.
Yeah, indeed. Look, a bit of smoke there coming out of Indianapolis as well, but yeah, it seemed like the AMG there, as we get a replay of what happened here as well. It's Oscar Coveney actually in all this instance. Speaking of that smoke into Indianapolis, overcooked it too much. Oh dear, that's Ollie Simsports from P2 spinning off it right into the wall, and that is their race done completely. So a mistake from Oscar Coveney into Indianapolis, over rotates the front end under braking into Indianapolis, sends the car all sorts of different shapes wrong into Indianapolis and ends up in the wall. So we see here coming for Indianapolis now, tucks into the right hand side, onto the brakes, and the brakes snatch on him. Goes too much on the pressure on the brakes, and the front end over rotates, and that's his race done and dusted.
We sometimes see that rear locking in this car, Owen. I mean, is there something that the driver does differently which causes the rears to lock in that fashion?
So that would be a case of having too much of a high pressure when he's turning the steering wheel at the same time as well. So when you're coming into Indianapolis, you want to have a very light and smooth brake pressure on the middle of the apex. And then as you're straightening up your braking zone, you want to be fairly high on the pressure then coming off it as well. But I think the problem there was Oscar was too far to the left-hand side, trying to bring it over to the right. But as he was bringing it over, he pushed that brake pressure too high and that allowed the rear end to kind of snap round. Tried to save it, but as he had so much grip going into the corner, it just let go of him completely. So yeah, unfortunate mistake, an easy one to make as well. So yeah, that's a shame for him there to make that kind of mistake.
We hope to see them back out on circuit at the end of this race. Everyone does have a faster pair, however, it is automatically ticked. Obviously, when you get into iRacing, as many people know, as the organisation pretty soon to be coming back out on circuit, despite being 8 laps down. That's good to see. Yeah, RD Simsport might have that faster pair, or maybe they've already used that faster pair. You know, they maybe got a little bit of air damage just by hitting a curb, for example. That can be enough to force you to have to, or certainly encourage you to take the fast pair early on, in which case they may not still have it available. We wait to see what will happen on that front. As we're into the last 53 minutes, and now this battle that we've been sort of hyping up about for a little while is finally happening, because Imperial Motorsports, as much as they try, as much as Matt Quinn pushes, it has been an inevitability that the 2 cars behind would catch by the end of this race, and they are going to have plenty of time to be able to pull this one off. We're not expecting any driver changes as well, so expect Matt to not have any lets off, and already now the gap is down to just a couple of tenths of a second. Matt might be all right heading into an Indianapolis this time out, but I think the next time they head onto the Mulsanne, we could well see a change of position for 5th place.
Yeah, it's going to be very close coming to Indianapolis here, with the drivers only separated by 5 tenths apiece throughout the whole section as well. So 5 tenths separates these 3 cars in concession as well. Yeah, as you said, not enough straight line speed here to get them down into Indianapolis, but it seems the Sim Racing PR are just trying to keep at bay here, it seems, so far. The 2-Pi Racing Team doesn't want to go for a move too early on here. Maybe 2-Pi can slip into Indianapolis, doesn't quite, maybe into Porsche curves if they get a good enough exit there for them. But yeah, this battle is shaping up nice, and nice and lively here for this 5th place here as well. But I just want to touch back onto the RD Sinsport mistake as well. It's a shame for them because they were also only one point behind Obsidian Racing Future for the championship as well. So that's really, really damaged their championship stances so far. Falling down to 6th place. So good to see that they're back out on track and, of course, get as much points as they possibly can do. But yeah, 1 point behind Obsidian Racing Future are RD Sinsport so far. So a shame for them to have that little mistake there, or that big mistake, in fact, to lose a lot of points there and kind of lose that staple they had in 2nd place of the championship.
Yeah, they could still recover one more position. SimHQ Motorsports Orange only 10 seconds ahead, and that would be 5th position. But I said right at the top, it's very tricky to recover points in this series because the gaps between 1st and 2nd in the points is only 3. To finish 5th, you're talking 25 points, and so you would need to win. Well, in fact, I mean, it's pretty dire news for them because if it ends like this with them getting 5th position, which is the best that they're going to finish, I believe the difference in the championship would be 11 points. And so they could potentially win the final 3 rounds of the championship, but Obsidian just finished 2nd in each of those rounds, and Obsidian would still win the title by 2 points. So it's potentially falling out of their hands now for RD Simsports if the race finishes like this, and of course it could send them down the standings a little bit as well, with Penguin looking to take advantage of that. They might move up themselves as we see one of the LMDHs move their way through. No, apologies. It was
Niels, I think. Niels Tistas.
Yeah, Niels Tistas. You're right, in P3. Slaloming his way through around the Dunlop corners.
Yeah, it's very tricky to, well, especially as a GT3 or a slower class car, to have an LMDH or a faster class car through that section, because, you know, the LMDH has no choice but to go through you because there is a high-speed section. LMDH has their own race, which GT3 has theirs as well. But yeah, that has separated that little battle there for 5th place by around about a second apiece, going from 5 tenths to 1 second now, splitting them 3 cars up together. But this battle is still very much alive, and their pit stop should be relatively soon. Of course, we have Matt Quinn in the Imperial Motorsports car pitting on lap 20, and of course, this being lap 32 for these GT3. So Matt Quinn could be his final lap on this stint here so far before he pits, and we have 2Pyro Racing Team who should be pitting in the next 3 or 4 laps, with Sim Racing PR pitting on the same lap as them as well, marginally. Anyways, we see Sim Racing. Oh, 2Pyro Racing Team actually getting the braking all sorts of wrong. Don't expect Matt Quinn there to brake early on. There's a little bit of a wiggle at the front end of the car, and has to go for a move that doesn't end up being too successful for him there. Loses a little bit of time compared to Sim Racing PR, but that we are pretty much where we was just 1 lap ago, with Sim Racing PR pushing that 2Pyro Racing Team along the Mulsanne straight onto the rear end of the Imperial Motorsports car. But this battle is still livening up, with only 3 tenths separating these 3 cars, as we see an aerial shot of them coming through now into the Mulsanne corner, and it should look like they have enough of a gap between them all to go down side by side through Indianapolis here.
It might be perfectly timed for that one, as there goes Majoy Banks going right and then left. Of course, had a spin a few moments ago at the Mulsanne corner. As is that a little bit slow there for Imperial Motorsports? I wonder what's that's about.
Fuel. This must be a fuel issue.
I guess he's struggling to make the lap.
Yeah, I mean, he is on his 12th lap of his stint here, so maybe that is just 1 lap too much for the GT3s to take so far. He is really lifting and really, really coasting, as you saw there, losing a lot of time on the straight compared to the Lamborghinis ahead. So, yeah, he may be struggling with fuel to make it to the box for this lap.
And with Penguin RC not far behind, could be problematic for him. And also, I mean, it's not good for Imperial Motorsports in terms of they weren't really in that 4th position anyway just before, because they're going to have to take more fuel than there was because they're having to pit so early. They pitted earlier and the rest, and so we're expecting about an extra 5 to 10 seconds worth of fuel to be added. So this is really dire for them, and even Dog Bear Black, who remember were up in 5th place earlier on in the race, they will be very close to Imperial Motorsports once all the pit stops sort themselves out. But it looks as though Matt will at least make it to the pit lane. Actually, travelling down the pit lane can use a lot of fuel itself as well. And so a disappointing end to that stint, but still a good effort there from Matt, who really didn't seem to make an error for that entire stint. But just not quite with the same pace as 2Pay and Sim Racing PR to keep them behind.
Yeah, indeed. A great effort there from Matt Quinn, of course. It's a shame for him to having to save so much fuel at the very end and losing out them 2 positions and losing out a little bit of time as well for that Imperial Motorsports car. But as they come into the pit lane, let's see if they take a new set of tyres or not. Again, we mentioned before with David Anderson also saying about the tyre limits as well. Only 3 sets of tyres for this race to use for them so far. Let's see if he goes up on the jacks at all. He does go on the jacks, so this is a tyre change for them. And a driver swap as well. Leave Peterson. So I believe that's 3 drivers in for Imperial Motorsports here today. So we'll see what Leaf's pace is like compared to Matt Quinn's and the former driver in that Imperial Motorsport car as well. But yeah, Super Racing Team and Sim Racing PR continue their charge through this race today, and the Super Racing Team currently in 4th place, followed by Sim Racing PR in 5th, taking over that spot from Imperial Motorsports as well. So we'll see where they come out in terms of their pit stops in a couple of laps time compared to Imperial Motorsports. But yeah, this battle is still chipping away.
Yeah, we're only going to have a good idea of what the proper situation when it comes to these GT3 cars will be with about half an hour to go when all the pit stops have been completed. Yeah, then we'll have a very good idea. Of course, we need to figure out as well how fast each of these drivers as well can Leaf Peterson deliver the pace needed in order to keep himself in with a chance of P4 in this race. As we have Steve Miller. Oh, it's the same. I mean, it gets to a point. As we got the leader, what's happened to Valera? What has happened to Valera? He's seemingly spun it. I don't think he's hit the wall. Now, he's got a massive gap of about a minute. And, yeah, he has made a mistake at the final forward chicane. A lot of curb on the first one. Oh, he's dipped it onto the gravel. And that is a hit into the wall.
Well, yeah, I was going to say they had a bit of a struggle coming out of the final corner there as well. And I saw the tyre on the left-hand side and I thought that must be damaged on the front left. And that is their race not as nice as they wanted to. And that's just before the pit lane as well. So they have to go through the entire lap like this with one left-hand tyre, pretty much not even attached to the car at all. This is going to be a very bumpy ride for him.
And this might... and he's got to tow back. He's got to tow back at this point. He's just risking too much. It's such a long lap around this place unless he... Maybe he's got decent straight line speed still, but he cannot turn the right-handers. And, well, this was an absolute easy win for Obsidian, but not anymore. And this is such a long lap to have to manage. Blake Reynolds in P2 has just crossed the start-finish line. Now, what I'm concerned for Obsidian is I think they might have to make an extra pit stop as well, because I'm not sure if he can get to the end of the race from here. I mean, he'll pit with about 41 minutes to go in this race, but considering that you've got to remember there'll probably be an extra lap, so you're talking more like 43 minutes to the end of this race. He's just got to go across the gravel here. There's no point. Don't do it, It's not worth it. You'll serve the slowdown anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure if he'll get to the end of the race here. And if he does, he'll have to do a lot of fuel saving. So not only is he losing time now, he might lose time in his closing stint as well.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, the MDH can only roughly go about 35 minutes on a stint. Probably a bit more if you can push it with the fuel as well. But yeah, they definitely have to make another splash and dash towards the end. But Peregrine RC Simulation are going to be jumping and cheering all over the place with this one, seeing that instant happen. And they're going to take the lead here as well. RD Simsport going into P2 as well. So, yeah, great day for them so far. But RD Simsport as well.
Why is he taking the chicanes? God. There's no point in taking the chicanes. To just be going straight. One's easily going to lose the lead here. I do think it would have been worth him towing as well because he's so slow up there.
Yeah, I mean, arguably it depends how long the tow time would have been because he was literally just outside the pit box as well going across the start finish straight. So that would have been a major tow for them. So maybe it would have been better to drive this safely through the lap here so far. But yeah, as we get a replay of this was Josh Wiggins, it says here, but I believe this is Steve Mello originally, who went over the Arnage curb again, doing the exact same mistake as before, and sending it too far over the Marsan chicane there as well for Steve Miller there. That has now changed for Josh Wiggins in the car as well. And I unfortunately can't see what's happened. Although I can, never mind, I can see what's happened here with Edison, who's been turned by the LMP2 there, and that is Sim Racing PR, who were in a bout with Super Racing Team there, who have just been turned by an LMP2, that's Blue Shell Racing, who's gone too far over to the left-hand side and caused Edison a whole world of pain with a little bit of steering damage as well for his car.
Well, the good news for Hernandez was that he was going to be pitting in a couple of laps anyway, so he won't have to make an extra pit stop. And as long as he's got his faster pair, which I think he's now used, he should get back out there. So that happened at a good time, as we have got a change for the lead. And frankly, this is
Wow.
decisive. And let's see if Obsidian can get round our Nage. Yeah, he has been able to make it. Blake Reynolds for Penguin RC. Now, this was not looking like a great race for Penguin because they were running in P3, which, to be fair, would have been a nice result for them. But then we had the crash for RD Simsport, which ruled them out at Indianapolis. Then, of course, we've now seen the incident for Obsidian. And Penguin are leading this race, and by a country mile, because Obsidian are going to drop behind RD Simsport 2 as well. They might not even be too far ahead of We 2 Fast Racing, depending on whether they can get to the end of the race with one more stop. And there's absolutely no chance that even the talents of Valero will be able to bring this race win back. They are going to lose too much time here.
This is a dramatic final hour to this race for sure. I mean, no one expected the Obsidian Racing Future car to drop it like that, but it's such a tiny mistake that, you didn't expect anyone to make, as we see RD Sport 2 now coming out to the rear end of the Obsidian Racing Future, who now pits, obviously, to take their fast repair, and they drop down to third before the pit stop even happens. As you can see that RD Sport taken to the forward chicanes. Yeah, this is a big moment here for the race, of course, and this will mean that the championship order is going to be Wave Flips around and Penguin RC Simulation, depending on where Obsidian Racing Future finish and RD Sport finish. They could end up taking the championship lead, or at least very close to it after this race.
Yeah, and RD Sim Sport 2 will be back into at least championship contention. But yeah, going into this round, Penguin RC were 8 points off the championship lead. RD Sim Sport 2 were 9 points off the championship lead. And they are going to be gaining some points today. 40 minutes to go. So Obsidian, like you were saying before, 35 minutes approximately on tank of fuel. They might be able to fuel save and get to the 40. But will be tight for them. And I do believe they have the fast repair available as well, so they should have a clean car to the end of the race at least. This one is a good one. Team Brickfade versus Longhorn Racing. Off a second between the two of them at the moment. At last that Matt Nedeff for Valhalla Motorsports. Apologies, Richard Williams for Team Brickfade. Did a 4:29, which is very, so I think he just came into the pits. Whereas I think Longhorn Racing still need to come to the pit, so Brickfade should have a good lead once all the pit stops sort themselves out. As was that a crash for Richard Williams?
I believe it was. This must have been on the previous lap, because they've obviously just gone through this section on the live feed so far. LMP2 coming through. No, it dips into the grass. Oh, narrowly misses the LMP2 there as well. And yeah, makes it all sorts of wrong going into Tete Rouge there just before dipping into the grass, tries to save it and loops it into the barrier there on the right-hand side, then moving on to the left as well. So they have obviously got that car repaired, gone back out on track, and that must have been a while ago there, because their car seems a lot more in a cleaner condition than before as well. Ooh, a little bit of a slalom move there from Larry Ford and Longhorn Racing with Team Breakford as well. A good little battle here is going on with Team Breakford going a little bit deep, and Larry Ford trying to go around the outside of the Mulsanne chicane 2 there. Doesn't make it work too well for him, but yeah, keeps it in P12 and keeps it fairly comfortable behind as well. But yeah, going back to Obsidian Racing Future as well, they are sitting in P4, so not too bad considering what happened to their car and how much of a long lap that was to bring it back to the pit lane. But they are still in P4, so a decent position for them to keep some championship points alive and keep their championship in a good order. But yeah, definitely not what they wanted, because RD Simsport is only one place behind them, meaning that the championship will be a lot closer than what it was going into this third round here.
Yeah, a lot closer than it was. And it's incredible how Obsidian and RD are only 18 seconds between one another now at this point of the race, after the trials and tribulations that they've been through. But yeah, remember Obsidian were a minute clear of the rest, and look at them now, 90 seconds behind. So yeah, that mistake losing them the best part of 2.5 minutes. There goes Longhorn again, a past into Indianapolis. Not sure who necessarily is the faster out of these two drivers on that last lap. It was, well, because we didn't get a representative lap from Williams, but Ford was in the 4 minutes, and to be fair, that's not a bad time at this point in the race because, sure, drivers were in the 55s or even, to be fair, you know, Ray Kingsbury for Penguin RC still in the 54s right now. But the track increasing in temperature, you do expect these drivers to lose some pace, and a few drivers as well on older tyres due to the limitation of how many tyre sets they can take in the GTDs. As there was a very close moment there for the P2, who's just darting their way through this field at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. It's a good aggressive manoeuvre into the Indianapolis chicane there, and a good one as well, because Larry Ford has been able to really extend that gap as we see the battle for P2 and then P2 there into the Ford chicanes with John Major Banks and RDC Sport 3 car of Ian Peterson 2 behind there as well. It's a great battle here for P2 in the LMP2 class as well. Very, very close towards these final stages, roughly around 45 minutes to go here, and I believe it should be about one more stop for these guys as well in LMP2 as well. So, yeah, great to see this battle is still very much alive, and RDC Sport 3 has been putting in the lap times to catch up to these guys as well. So good to see that happening. As we can see a little bit of a rear end slide there from John Majorbanks in the Penguin RC simulation and the P2 team there as well. It's a shame that they couldn't have 10% spot a little bit more forward on closest to them, because it could have made it an LMDH win and an LMP2 win. But I suppose podium position in LMP2 is still a good result to take home. But of course, you still got to wait until the checker flag comes out, because this battle is definitely shaping up to be a good one. As Paolo J. Francesca pits in for 10% spot.
Yeah, looking pretty good for Tempest as it stands. Of course, RD Sim Sport 4 will retake the race lead. Of course, 2 race wins already for RD for this season. And it's looking like it's going to be 3 because they are staying out, and Tempest taking no tyres. It's going to be a very long stint on those tyres, because that was a decently long stint, I think, that they just did. And of course, now the track at its hottest, up to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 10 degrees higher than what it was earlier on. Those tyres will be in a fairly poor state come the end of this event. So Tempest still in second place. There goes Ray Kingsbury for Penguin RC. He's going up on the jacks. And also Shane Norton for Dog Bear Black, who might well gain a few places in the closing stages here. They are also into the pits. Back Pain and Ice Stream will get past. Margin Above will get past. 2Pay will get past. And Sim Racing PR will also all move past. But they won't be far behind, and Imperial Motorsports now down to 9th position in that class. It'll be tight between Imperial Motorsports and Dog Bear Black, I imagine, when they come out of the pits.
This is very interesting as well.
Oh, yeah, I think Imperial Motorsports, apologies, Owen. I think I've just had an issue. I saw them off the circuit for a moment.
Oh.
There they are.
That's Lee Peterson up in the wall at the Porsche curves there. That seems like they've lost it on the braking, going into one of the left-handers there in the middle of the Porsche curves. Let's have a look and see what he did here. Around the Porsche curves now. Oh, that's a interesting way to lose it. He lost it on the curb and then kind of jolted to the right-hand side. Be good to see a cockpit view of what actually happened with Leaf steering there. But yeah, managed to just kind of lose it by himself. And let's see here on board with Leaf Peterson, Imperial Motorsports machine, coming through the left-hander here. Ah, okay, so loses the rear end as he goes into the corner just by a little bit. Tries to save it, but then the kind of counter correction or the overcorrection by Leaf there made it, you know, jolt to the right hand side and brings it back over to the left, which means it's ended up into the wall. So yeah, big shame by him as he comes into the pits in P9 so far. Goes back out after that fast repair taken as well. But yeah, shame for them guys. As we see a move here with Edison Hernandez and 2Pi Racing Team, the long-awaited battle that has finally come to us as well, as they are jostling into position. The Marsan Chicane 1. Sim Racing PR trying to go around the outside of the Marsan Chicane 1. Still stays around there. There's a brilliant move by Jose Ramirez there on the 2Pi Racing machine car. Brilliant to enable the switchback from allowing 2Pi Racing to go a bit deeper on the brakes and allowing to get that switchback around the outside as well. So fantastic move, but it's not all over yet because 2Pi Racing Team is still on the rear end of that Sim Racing PR machine. He's going to look to go down to the inside, covers off it very well, the Edison of the 21 machine. So they're going to stay nice and orderly through the section as well. Yeah, no real moves here for position too far, but yeah, that was a great move by Edison there to hang around the outside of the first chicane.
Yeah, these guys, after so much politeness for the majority of this race, they are now seemingly going all at it. They do still have a good chance of catching up to the cars ahead because there was a long pit stop for marginally above average sim racers. They had to take a lot of fuel to get to the end of the race because they have taken some short stops already so far. So they're in range, as seemingly now ahead is the 2Pay Racing Team car. Ramirez with a very strong run and was able to take the normal racing line through Mulsanne corner to get ahead. But not only are marginally above average sim racers ahead, they've also got Penguin RC Simulation with Ray Kingsbury in the car. He is ahead as well. And so if these guys can perform at their best, and that's talking, 3-minute 56s, 3-minute 57s, they can catch up. But this battling is going to be costing them a lot of time. And Hernandez wanting to get past, I think they need to figure out, maybe just let the other car go ahead, wait behind for 20 minutes, and allow themselves to catch up, because this passing is not going to be bolstering their chances of getting potentially a 4th position.
Yeah, I was just going to mention as well beforehand that obviously their pit stops have happened recently. This is 2Pay Racing Teams. This is their outlap so far to start their final stint, or one of their final stints here anyway. But of course, we saw that Sim Racing PR had that moment at Indianapolis Arnage with an LMB2 that sent them flying into a wall. So yeah, it's good to see that they took the fast repair fairly early on and was able to benefit from seemingly a slow stop from 2Pay Racing Team, and enabled them to stay on the back of them and not lose any time from that.
Yeah, it'll be a shame for Sim Racing PR. I think they were just able to take less fuel. Maybe took more fuel in the previous stints, or in the previous stops, apologies. And yeah, you think if it weren't for that P2 instant, you think that probably lost them, what, 6-7 seconds? They'd be up in P4 right now, as they have now gone past. So that was 2Pay. Now, was that tactical? Was that a slowdown?
I don't think it was tactical, but it looked too quick to be tactical. It might have been a small slowdown that they were just lifting for and then slammed on the brakes for, which possibly would have cleared it. But it did seem a little bit like tactical, but it could have been a slowdown as well on the exit of the left-hand side there as well from Jose Ramirez, which we've seen before. I'm pretty sure the 2Pay have had a slowdown at a similar place like that earlier on in the race as well. So yeah, and as you can see there, Sim Racing PR wasting no time at all with that moment, and Edison storming away with a second in front of 2Pay Racing Team.
We too fast racing into the pit lane in the LMDH category. We are expecting the top 2 still fit to pit, Penguin and RD Sim Sport 2. Obsidian, we're not sure if they will have to pit again. If anything, probably not. We think they can just fuel save and avoid that extra pit stop. I think everyone else, bar Obsidian Racing, will have to pit again, as Francois Bru gets into the car for We Too Fast Racing. And we'll take over that machine to the end of the race. Could be a podium for them, depending on what happens to this car. At worst, it should be P4 once RD Simsport make their pit stop. By the way, very close for 2nd position in the LMP2 category. Christian Youngwall, who I feel like started that car, got out, and I think has got back in again. He's 1 second clear of RD Simsport 3 at the moment, Ian Peterson, and is actually pulling away now for that P2. So they're certainly not going to win this race, but Christian Youngwall with a good stint at the moment, and it looks like he's going to deliver his team a runners-up spot. Yeah,
indeed. Christian's been able to pull a little bit of a gap compared to RD Simsport so far. That gap was literally down to nothing, only a few laps to go. So Christian's starting to build some momentum in that LMP2 and fire away a little bit as that gap's come down, as I say that, down to 5 tenths as well. So yeah, it's all changing and moving here and there as well. So these seem to be fairly equal pace actually, as they're coming through most of the final sectors as well. And obviously we have the fast repairs, but there seems to be more visual damage on that RD Sport car there as well on the front right and the side of that car as well. But yeah, Christian doing a good job so far to keep him P2 with just over halfway to go. Well, just over 30 minutes to go for this race now. And yeah, we'll see what they can do towards the end of their stints.
Yeah, I really hope that we have some last lap fights, and I think it's sort of difficult to, once again, difficult to tell if he's fast, because different strategies for these drivers. So Peterson, I think, was able to have a bit of a short, a not sure. I'm not sure what's going on with the lap times at the moment, but I'm seeing that on that last lap he was like 50 seconds faster, or 50 seconds slower was Peterson, but I don't think that's the case. Anyway, Blake Reynolds into the pit lane for Penguin RC Simulation, and they are just comfortably heading towards a race win here. There's really nothing that can stop them. RD Sim Sport 2 still need to come into the pits. In fact, they are pitting now, and so Blake Reynolds just get the car stopped in your box, don't speed, don't mess anything up, take tyres, put enough fuel in the thing, and there's very little that can deny these guys because they had a big gap beforehand, about 25 seconds over the rest of the field, and with Blake's strong pace, there's little to stop them, and Niels Teester as well will be really delighted if RD Sim Sport 2 can deliver this second place finish.
Yeah, indeed. As you mentioned there with Penguin RC Simulation, with stopping in the box. Weirdly, that is a great mental tactic or mental kind of thing when you're given this kind of gifted position of P1 after someone crashed out in front of you. It's kind of like a relax, but also don't relax kind of scenario. You want to take everything nice and smoothly so you don't make any mistakes, but also not relax too much that you do start to make the mistakes as well. So it's a weird kind of mental attitude that you put yourself in when you're gifted this P1 position by such a margin as well. It's kind of like okay, don't do anything too silly, but let's just keep that momentum building and make sure that we don't make any mistakes as well as they're out on track. Now, around about 16 seconds ahead of the RD Sim Sport 2 car. So I don't know if that's just me or that gap has come down at all. Yeah, like I was saying, Niels Teester's that last pit time was a 24-second compared to Blake Reynolds in P1 having a 31-second pit stop time as well. So that gap has definitely come down quite a lot with the Sydney Racing Future there, obviously making their pit stop a while back as well, so they are yet to stop, only 15 seconds behind RD Sim Sport 2, but yeah, they'll have to stop relatively soon as well.
Yeah, and so yeah, 17 seconds, I mean, just less fuel seemingly for RD Sim Sport, maybe had a bit of fuel spare, and maybe Penguin just absolutely making sure putting a couple of extra laps of fuel in just as a precaution, but yeah, will be a little bit of a smaller gap now, and something for Niles that I imagine to continue pushing to keep that gap as low as possible, just to see if there is a spin, because even for the GTD leaders, we've seen RD Sim Sport 4 spin 3 times so far in this race. I mean, spins are very possible around this circuit, and RD Sim Sport wants to be there to pick up any mistakes that do occur. It is getting really close now for P2 in the P2s, because that's a little bit of traffic as Youngwall pushing the limits of the rules there, because that could have been interpreted as a block. Peterson quite clearly on the right side of the circuit, and the Penguin RC Simulation car coming across slightly. I'm sure he'll get away with that one, but probably is not going to make the car number 45 especially pleased.
Yeah, indeed. A little bit of a mistake there from Ian Peterson as well, coming out the final chicane. That's why he's just lost that amount of time. I originally thought it was a slowdown, but no, it's just a little bit of a mistake for the final chicane. But yeah, I suppose, as you said, probably a bit flustered from the little bit of weaving manoeuvres going into the forward chicane there from the Penguin RC Simulation car. I don't think it will be too much of a thing that's going to be picked up. But yeah, we've seen some quite harsh penalties so far today, or at least in the series as well. So maybe it will be looked at by the stewards or reported by someone on the RD Sim Sport 3 team to try and get an extra position if they can get it, which is, if you have live stewarding there and you see an incident that's wrong and you can see an opportunity to penalise your opponent in front, then you've got to do it. Because it's, if you can't make that position up in track, you may as well do it through the eyes of the stewards as well.
Yes, and we really do appreciate this series having live stewards. It's such a fundamental thing that endurance leagues have, and it's one of the reasons why so many get involved in events like this in comparison to the special events, when it's very much down to the old iRacing system of sort of just responsibility, and obviously that works to a certain extent, but there's always going to be small mistakes from drivers, and yeah, when that negatively affects another driver, it does certainly deserve a penalty. And so yeah, we do appreciate the work that the stewards do. It's not an easy job whatsoever, and of course the admins overall in this series, and for the other Champion Motorsports series as well. Some of the best league organisers in all of iRacing and all of sim racing, so big thanks to them for putting on this fantastic event. There is Tempest 37 seconds clear as we tune back in with this battle, and marginally above sim racers have lost a fair amount of time, I think, to the sim racing PR and the two pay racing team cars behind, but Penguin RC are only a second ahead, so I thought that these 4 cars might get close to one another by the end of this race, but I didn't think it would be this soon. We've got 22 minutes to go, and any of these 4 cars could finish in 4th position.
Yeah, indeed. It seems like also similar to PR after that move on to Pi Racing Team as well. It's really picked up a lot of pace, and yeah, as you said, a lot of people having a bit of pace changes as well, with the driver changes happening, and that can come into a big effect with the pace differential coming into effect as well. So yeah, good to see that it's all bunching up together for at least us up here in the commentary booth as well to have a bit of action to commentate over the last few minutes here. But yeah, great to see that these guys are still battling out after 3 hours of racing. And yeah, hopefully we can have a good little show towards the end with all these guys coming up close together in the end.
And Ray Kingsbury, apologies, was able to make that move, the Penguin RC simulation car. Don't know if we saw that one, but was able to move past the marginally above average sim racers on that last lap. So Kingsbury has an opportunity here to kind of build a nice gap over these 3 cars behind whilst they are stuck behind. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. Behind Kessel, Hernandez and Ramirez, who have been glued to one another for the past hour and 15 minutes, will soon be past, you would think, albeit, as you were saying before, yeah, decent gap now being formed to Ramirez. Struggling to keep tabs exactly with these drivers right now. Is Kessel able to hold on at least into the second Mulsanne chicane? I don't think he is going to be able to, and we do have a change for 5th position. Sim Racing PR are up to 5th place, up 3 places from their race start, and they have got Ray Kingsbury and Penguin RC well in their sights, 1.2 seconds to catch in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's fantastic final runs here for Edison, Rojas Hernandez in the Sim Racing PR machine. Really good performance so far to get through all these cars, and again, as you say, go up 3 places from where they started, especially Ray Kingsbury as well, up 6 places from where he started as well. So good form from the Penguin RC simulation team, or all 3 of them today actually, from all 3 classes, doing exceptionally well to get their position intact as well. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good battle towards the end. I believe that the marginally above average sim racers will be pulled along in the slipstream from the Sim Racing PR machine, and that Sim Racing PR machine with the phenomenal pace it has right now will be able to catch right on the back of that Penguin RC simulation car to be able to have a nice little battle for 4th place at the very end of this race, which I think will be a good watch for us, but I'm sure Ray Kingsbury will want to keep that 4th place as much as he can.
Yeah, be absolutely desperate. So I think if Kingsbury is overtaken, might be able to stay in the Justice. Oh, that's very wide. That's pushing the limits there for marginally above average sim racers. They've gone too deep for Arnage as well, and Scott Kessler, I think, just over pushing it a bit. He wants to stay in the toe of the car ahead, but just pushing it too hard on that occasion, and he's well and truly out of the draft now, and Tupe will surely be passing. Just a matter of laps for that 6th position. Unlucky for marginally above sim racing, because they've worked so hard after not a particularly good qualifying for them. I mean, they only qualified in 7th place, but to get as high as 4th place and even be very close to 2nd place at one point in this race, albeit was always going to drop back because they took some short stints early on in the event. It will be disappointing for them if they only get 7th position from this race, albeit they should also keep an eye on Dog Bear Black, who are 7 seconds behind. Just see them exiting the Porsche curves in the background, 7.5 seconds behind in 8th position as it stands. That is the main battle going on. Of course, still close for 2nd place in the LMP2 category. But yeah, mainly the GTEs, GT3s, where it is coming down to the wire in these final stages of round 3 of the iRTES championship.
Yeah, it is. We see Josh Wiggins for RDC Sport 4 keeping that comfortable lead that was handed by Steve Mello at the beginning of the race as well. And yeah, of course, Steve having them 3 spins on Arnage, but didn't really affect them too much, and still keeps roughly around about 30-second gap to 10% spot behind. Seems like Josh Wiggins and Paolo J. Francesca are pretty evenly matched in terms of pace-wise. Josh Wiggins' last lap time being a 3:56.62, and followed by Francesca doing a 56.04. Again, probably caused by traffic and stuff like that as well. But the average lap times are showing that they're fairly evenly matched on pace as well. So good to see for that as well. As we see, Ray Kingsbury letting through the sim racing PR machine of Edison Rojas Hernandez. So maybe that was a slowdown there from Ray Kingsbury out of, yeah, Tessa Rouge. Yeah, that'll be it. Out of Tessa Rouge, Ray Kingsbury has a slowdown out of that corner and allowing sim racing PR to romp on by and allowing him to slip back into position and into, well, 5th place in Class City goes, and Edison up into 4th. So Ray Kingsbury will be very disappointed with himself there to get a slowdown out of Teta Rouge, but yeah, will be very much on the charge to fight back to get that 4th position right out of Edison's reach.
Is that especially frustrating when you give up the position in that way? Because I imagine, you know, Ray was probably, you know, psyching himself up. Yes, I can do this. I can keep him behind for a couple of laps. Maybe I can stay in the draft and I can really stay in this one. And then before the car behind even catches you, you've made a mistake, which has probably denied you a chance. I don't know if you've had experience of that in the past, Owen, and know how it feels at all.
Yeah, for sure. It's always been frustrating. I've had it a few times as well in sim cups and special events where, you know, you have a little bit of a mistake and you lose a few places here and there. And, you know, as much as you want to try and forget about it, it's always just in the back of your mind thinking, okay, I've made that mistake and I've lost the position. I need to get that position back no matter what. And then as that's playing in your mind, you start to drive with a little bit more pressure underneath your feet and a little bit more, you know, kind of mental stability going a bit down a little bit as well as you're thinking about that mistake over and over again. But yeah, what Ray's got to do here is trying to forget about it as much as you can. Think of this as his position. Don't look back on the past and just keep pushing on forward to the rear in that sim racing PR machine. But the worst part is if the car in front of you is also a little bit quicker as well, and you can't really do much to catch on to the back of them. It is even more defeating, especially when you know you made a mistake to get to that position in the first place. As he goes wide, continuing the mistake streak as well for Ray Kingsbury there. So yeah, he's clearly not over that little mistake, as well as Aranage gets it all sorts of wrong as well, similar to what Margie Above Sim Racers had as well, who has actually slipped behind 2Pi Racing Team. Not sure if we saw that earlier on or not as well. But yeah, it's all changing here on that 48 for sure. But yeah, it's very frustrating to have that little moment there when you make a mistake and there's not really much you can do about it.
So yeah, there goes RD Simsport. This is what we anticipated. Still waiting for that pit stop from Obsidian Racing Future, which we're not sure if it's going to come, but we do think Obsidian will probably continue. What are their pace like, actually? 24.5. Yeah, I mean, that's 4 seconds slower than what they were doing, so maybe they are lifting and coasting. Is lifting and coasting very effective in this car? Because I would have thought, so if you're lifting and coasting, then you're not generating the same amount of energy recovery potentially, because you're not hitting the brake pedal as much. Is that something that happens, or is it just as effective as a GT3 car?
So it can be very effective. Of course, this car being the lowest in terms of fuel consumption, being the hybrid. So, you know, fuel saving can get you a long distance. In terms of the strategy, saving roughly about maybe half a litre, depending on how much you're doing it. But yeah, it will definitely be a little bit more of a kind of hindrance to your energy recovery as well. You know, getting on that brake pedal is very important, and getting on it at high pressure as well is also really important. So if you're not getting on that pressure for a long time, then you're not saving as much energy, leading to not very quick down the straights as well. As we see a move, almost, Jesus, I thought Ian Peterson was going to dive down the inside of the 4 chicanes there of the NMP2 car of RD Simsport 3, followed closely by the Penguin RC Simulation NMP2 car as well. So that battle is still very much alive in this closing stages of the race. But yes, to answer the question, yeah, it's still very effective in LMDHs.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, could well be a tactic then used by Obsidian Racing. A very clean car, of course. We know that they only took their faster pair about 45 minutes ago when they were a minute ahead, and yet made a mistake coming out of the final chicane, hit the wall, and had to do an entire lap with an A-Link car. Lost about a minute and a half in hindsight, probably even more than that, probably closer to 2 minutes in time because of it. And that is why they may well not lead the championship after this round. In fact, actually, I think they should do, but not by the margin that they were anticipating. It really was looking like they had one hand on the trophy, potentially, if they could take the race win today. As whilst he came very close before, I think this could well be the end of the resistance for Christian Youngwall, who has been ever so strong in that second place for a long period of time. He's not giving up though. Late on the brakes into the first Mulsanne chicane. They remain side by side. Really respectful racing from the two of them, leaving just over a car's width available. And now neither of them has the draft until, dipping back into it, goes Ian Peterson. Youngwall with seemingly pretty good straight line speed. The fact that he's been able to hold on this long certainly indicates that. And he's not defending into these chicanes. He's got enough confidence that he can break on the racing line and carry the speed on the outside. This time he is much earlier on the bricks, however, and there is a move across, and now there's a slight spin for Youngwall. He keeps it out to the gravel. RD Simsports 3 are up into second position, and now with a 2-second advantage as well. But some odd shapes being pulled. Is he going to give up the position? I'm not entirely sure whose fault that was, but he is going to give up the position here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting for him to do that as well. I mean, arguably there was some overlap there. It wasn't too big of an overlap for the RD Simsport car to leave over the Penguin Nasty Simulation car. So I don't believe that was entirely Ian Peterson's fault. It may be just more of a racing incident. They closed in on each other there as we see a replay of what happened. But yeah, maybe just lifting so that we could see. Hold on, first of all, Oscar Coveney coming through onto Indianapolis, making a similar mistake. But before he does, he drops it again in Indianapolis. Oscar Coveney for RD Simsport, with a major mistake earlier on that set them back into this position, is now beached on the curb at Indianapolis and having to tow back to pit lane.
And he's already used his fast repair, obviously. So that's it. He should still be classified. I think he's done enough points to get points. He's done enough laps to get points, but that is another 2 positions lost by him, or even 4 positions. Yeah, 3 positions lost. I think he's lost out to SimHQ, Motorsports, Pneumatic, and Static Adrenaline. And so RD Simsport, who'd been given a lifeline due to Obsidian Racing's mistake, they will definitely be dropping down as low as 4th position now, behind their teammates RD Simsport 2 and Penguin RC Simulation, once the points are tallied up after this round. So, awful round for Obsidian. We had a good chance at the race win tonight, and yet will come away with minimal points and with a big championship deficit to make up with only 3 rounds of the season to go. We were talking earlier on about how they could win all the remaining races and not win. Well, that's certainly the case now, because they'll be over 10 points behind in the championship fight. So still the battle for P2 going on. The GT3s, by the way, have mainly spread out. No cars within 2 seconds of one another in the GT3s. I don't think that will stay the case to the end. I think that a couple of them will get close to one another by the end of the race. But for now, this is the only wheel-to-wheel battle. And still, Peterson cannot make that move stick on Youngwall. And it is starting to beg the question, despite clearly being faster, it's quite indicative, at least, that he seems to be faster. It's been a good 15 minutes now, Owen, where he hasn't been able to make that move stick.
No, indeed. Obviously, going back to that incident earlier on with the, RD Simsport and Penguin RC Simulation in the Mulsanne Chicane 2, yeah, I don't believe it was anyone's fault, but yeah, I suppose Ian Peterson probably lifted and gave out the decision just to defend against any other steward that would have probably penalised him for that one. So it was a good idea to do that with the live stewarding going on in this race as well. But yeah, obviously, as you said, it's hard for them to stick a move as goes a little bit deep, does Penguin RC Simulation, that allows Ian Peterson to slip through with a great exit compared to Penguin RC Simulation that didn't get the benefit of the exit of the Mulsanne Chicane 1. Allows to slip into second place. Does he hold it for long? He does. He is overlapped the Penguin RC Simulation LP2, but it's coming back for the draft from the Dog Bear Racing. Ferrari there, GT3. Is the same thing going to happen again? No, it doesn't. Penguin RC Simulation slips back into P3 and allows Ian Peterson to kind of romp on to the Mulsanne corner, but it's not over yet because Christian Youngwall is going towards the outside of the Mulsanne corner with marginally above average sim racers blocking the way in the middle of the track here. Are we going to make it 3 wide going to Mulsanne corner? It's going to be very, very brave to do so, but we're going to have a look. It seems like Christian Youngwall is getting caught out. Both of them are getting caught here. They're side by side going to Mulsanne corner. Christian has to defend around the outside and does so with Ian Peterson getting a worse exit and having a little bit of a rear slide there as well. So Ian Peterson, RD Simulation 3, gets a worse exit, allowing Christian Youngwall to romp off into the distance there with a 5-10 gap separating the two LP2s.
And Christian's leaving a lot of faith right now in Ian every time that he goes side by side. Because it seems like it's always Christian on the outside. He never seems to defend, and on that occasion, he was having to go on the attack and go on the outside. And unfortunately for him, Ian didn't understeer too much. There was a bit of contact between the two of them, but surprisingly, the inside car, the one who made the mistake. And now we've got smoke ahead, and that is John Taylor Tammy for Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, who had recently gained a position. Now, they've got plenty of time on their hands because Static Adrenaline are over a lap behind, but they've towed back to the pits, and, well, if they've already used their faster pair, which I believe they have done, that could be game over for them.
Yeah, some of the most instances they were seeing is at these two corners especially, and he's going to... Oh! Okay, so the GT3 dives down to the rear end of the LMDH there and doesn't suspect that the LMDH will brake sooner, but of course LMDH brakes not being that great and sends the LMDH flying off into the barrier. So I think 2Pi Racing might pick up a penalty because of that. Let's have a look on the onboard with Jose Ramirez here. Jumps behind the LMP2 into Arenage. Yeah, I'd put on GT3 100%. Got to expect the LMDH to brake a little bit sooner than that. And yeah, unfortunately, that may end up in a penalty for 2Pi Racing Team.
Bit of a setback now for marginally above sim racers. They've just lost a bunch of time. You can just see them in the background. They will probably gain a position if 2Pi get a penalty. But Dog Bear Black, after a bit of a disappointing hour of the race recently for them, where they were running as high as 5th place, but have been running in 8th for a little while now, they could well be as high as 6th in a few moments' time because they are much faster than marginally above sim racers. Kessel seemingly making a couple of mistakes recently. He's back into the 4 minutes. We know that he can do 3 minute 58, I think we saw him do earlier on, but he's making a few mistakes now, and this one with just over 5 minutes to go will almost certainly be a move. It will be tight though whether these guys get lapped again. They might get 2 more laps. These guys might either be, I think these guys are actually going to be the last Joes across the line, as I think that's a slowdown for Dog Bear. They seem to have lost a few tenths of a second. It's up to 8 tenths of a second now, that gap. Yeah,
indeed. Coming over too quick and too much curve on the inside of the Tete Rouge there. Usually you get a slowdown for being too far left over the curve, but this time he was too far right on the inside of the curve there as well. So Shane Norton there, unfortunately, taking a heavy slowdown there over the Mulsanne straight and loses a bunch of times marginally above average sim racers who we thought might be able to take that place for P7, but that gap has extended a bit more than Shane would have liked to, but I'm sure marginally above average sim racers are sitting there with a little bit more relief on their shoulders.
And I said before that they might not be lapped. They're absolutely going to be lapped. They're going to be lapped by the middle part of this lap, and we've still got 1 more to go after this one. So these guys will be will only have 1.5 more laps to go now. And they got the next one, and that will be it in terms of their race tonight. So not much time for Norton to be able to recover that position. Further up the road, we have still got that P2 battle in the LMP2 class. Youngwall ahead of Peterson, but this is a nice run now for Peterson, and we always love it. It's probably the most aesthetically pleasing overtake that you can get on this circuit, the move into Indianapolis, and I think we might be about to see it once again. No interest for Youngwall to defend the inside line. He knows that the outside turns into the inside. He can take the normal racing line anyway, and now they've got to try to race past this GT3 car. Which way they're going to go? GT3 makes it helpful for them. Moves to the left immediately, sees a slight opportunity there, does Peterson, because there was a slight hesitation from Youngwall, but not able to get past, and now actually it's Youngwall who's been able to sprint ahead. The GT3 car, a little bit furious. He's saying, I've made that one as easy as he possibly can for you guys, and yet you still put me offline. But crucially now, there's 6 tenths of a second behind. 2 more laps, though, for Youngwall to defend against Peterson. But yeah, just another opportunity gone for the P3 man.
Yeah, indeed. A little bit of a mistake there from Ian Peterson there in the iRTES Sport 3 machine, because he should have realistically stayed behind Christian Youngwall there and fire off to have a better exit. Oh, as we see a possible slowdown. Definite slowdown there for Christian Youngwall there. Yeah, there he goes. Definite slowdown there. Really heavy one as well outside the Porsche curves. As I was talking about having a better exit, it was like Christian Youngwall went too aggressive on the exit there of the Porsche curves, picks up a slowdown and drops to around about a second behind Ian Peterson in front there. So Ian Peterson, after a little mistake at Arnage, now has the benefit of Christian Youngwall's slowdown and goes up into second place once again.
I mean, that must be really frustrating for Youngwell. We were literally saying a few laps ago, you know, you psych yourself up to be able to defend a position, and he's defended so well over the past 20 minutes. He has been under an incredible amount of pressure ever since the last pit stops. And then he makes a mistake like that where you push it just too much through the push, because especially seeing that he'd actually built up a bit of a gap as that's wide.
Ooh.
And that's a similar mistake to what he made on the previous lap. Scott Kessel, largely above sim racers, do drop down to 8th place. Dogbear move up to 7th, which could turn into 6th if Toupee get the penalty that we anticipate they are going to yield. And so Dogbear Black recovering some good points and are on track to 7th.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very costly mistake there, as we just seen from RJ Bavara Sim Racers dropping down to 3 seconds behind the Dogbear Black team there of the Ferrari of Shane Norton there. So it's going to be a fairly comfortable cruise to the checkered flag here for Dogbear, because we saw how much pace the Dogbear Black car had on the RJ Bavara Sim Racers over that lap as well. So if Shane can keep this under control, he seems to be picking up an easy, well, a fairly comfortable 7th place anyway at this stage in the race as well. Only losing one position as well. A pit stop, yes, you have noted correctly, for
Sim Republic SR3. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just seeing the gaps now. This is going to drop Sim Republic SR3 down at least 1 place behind Longhorn Racing 2. I think it will drop them behind Nicholas Maynard for 100 force as well. It might be close actually with Maynard, but is that, I wonder if this is for fuel. It is for fuel. There is a bit of damage on that car, but they don't need to fix the damage. This will be really close now with 100 Force, who are just about to cross the line for 6th position. Oh, they've made a slight mistake. I wonder if Maynard saw the gap coming down. 100 Force will still be behind, and Sim Republic SR3 might be able to hold on to 6th place here, but they have underfueled, and that is the reason why they've lost a chance at a top 5 finish.
Yeah, it's a shame for them guys to have that little bit of a splash in. That's literally on like one of the last laps of the race here today. But yeah, didn't lose too many places, but it's going to be a place which you know, costs them in the championship as well, because they are currently sitting is Sim Republic SR3 in 6th in the championship so far as well. Only around about two points off Blue Shell Racing as well, who are currently 2 places ahead of them. So not great for their championship position at the minute as well. 100 Force in 2nd place in the minute that are in P7. So not a great day for 100 Force as well. As you can see, Nicholas Maynard at the wheel there in P7 currently.
The checker flag is being prepared for our race winner, Penguin RC Simulation. Apologies, my bad. I was looking at the wrong number one. I apologize.
He got too ahead of himself, got far too ahead of himself. But we're going to talk about Blake Reynolds for a little bit as well, because he is, yeah, pretty much gifted this position as well from Obsidian Racing and iRTES Sports, you know, misjudgments of errors as well in today's race, and they've had a fairly successful and calm race of Penguin RC Simulation. A few battles with iRTES Sport 2 themselves, and obviously being one of the title sponsors for this sim racing league here on iRacing, for the iRTES league as well. It's great to see them take a checker flag win, and their first win of the season for round 3 here at Le Mans, as they come across the Ford chicane over the final curves. Don't make a mistake now, and they cross the line to take victory here at Le Mans.
A massive victory for the team who entered this round 3rd place in the championship, but this one is going to go all the way to the wire for 2nd place in the LMP2 category, and Penguin have come back. Christian Youngwall, after a mistake a lap and a half ago, he's got back up into 2nd position, and this one is back alive. And look at the cars move as well. They're leaving absolutely nothing available whatsoever. The tyres will be burning at this point, the hottest track temperature we've had all day long. But for now, Penguin RC have got back ahead, and Christian Youngwall, he's a man possessed when it matters. He can't possibly pull a gap, but he might be able to hold on to 2nd place.
Yeah, indeed, as we see once again, the Valero for Obsidian Racing Future there, after a mistake here at this final corner here, takes through a 3rd place. So a shame for them after 2 solid victories at, a victory at Daytona and a victory at, well, not a victory at Daytona, sorry, my bad. Victory in Fuji, and yeah, a solid 3rd place here at the end. But yeah, shame for them, because they were leading by over a minute long until that mistake there. A little more small mistake in the gravel sent them flying into the wall, and without towing, all the way around the track into the pits as well as we come back onto the battle between Christian Youngwall and Ian Peterson for LMP2 for second place in LMP2 here. They're coming through the Marseille chicane 2 now. It seems like Christian Youngwall has it in the bag. He is really like prancing away really from Ian Peterson there. Makes a small mistake on the exit, loses about 2 tenths, but not enough for Ian Peterson to start charging into the Martin chicane right now. He might be able to get a run down into Indianapolis, so that gap is coming down slowly but surely to 0.29, 0.28, 0.27. Slowly but surely coming down as they have the Tempest SimSport GT3 car in front of them as well. That's currently running in second place all the way down to the checkered flag.
And apologies, there's also been a change right to the end for Sim Republic. Have they run out of fuel at the line? So they did lose out to 100 force. Remember, they took that splash and dash, but maybe they were still a litre short because they lost out in the final chicane. Or maybe even the run to the line. I just saw that change right before the checker flags came out. Tempest, SimSport are going to be crossing the line fairly soon, and the opportunities are running out for RD SimSport to bring this one back as they both dip into the gravel. A strong exit here for Youngwall is pretty much all he needs. It's not perfect for him, but the gap's still at 4.5 tenths of a second. It would just be another slowdown, which he did pick up earlier on at the Porsche curves, which could deny him this race victory. Meanwhile, Tempest SimSports, they are going to make it 3 race wins on the bounce, and there was never any question about it. The car number 11 with Villela at the wheel comes to the line and takes the race win here at Le Mans, and Josh Wiggins only just behind. They're going to make it 3 wins on the bounce as well for RD SimSport number 4, and despite 3 spins for his teammates, Josh Wiggins was making no mistakes whatsoever, and he wins out in the GT3 class. It doesn't look like he has picked up a slowdown this time, Christian Youngwall, and there's no opportunity to pass on this part of the track. And Christian Youngwall with a very well-earned second position for Penguin RC Simulation. A fantastic day for Penguin, and they managed to confirm that second place. RD SimSport will feel hard done by in third place, but they must have had a smile on their face, battling for all those 25 minutes towards the end.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff from both Penguin RC Simulation and RC SimSport 3 to keep that battle going for so long. It must have been so stressful. It's about an hour and a half of just pure battling between the two of them. The money officials only stretched to about an hour in ESS, and this was an hour and a half of just pure constant battling between the two of them. So great stuff from them two, going back and forth, and keeping the respect between them as well. Obviously, Ian Peterson letting by Christian Youngwall after a mistake there from the both of them, and chopping and changing positions left, right, and centre. So great race from them two today, and I think it's great things to come by for the rest of the rounds.
We're going to have a chat with a few of our drivers in the near future. Just finishing, we're just waiting for a couple of our drivers to cross the line, and so Kai's returning to the pits as well. And there are your race result. Penguin RC Simulation fairly comfortable in the year. We really didn't talk about them in the closing stages, but that gap to RD SimSport 2 never really looked like it was going to come down. In fact, it increased a fair amount after the final pit stops. Obsidian Racing Future 50 seconds behind the end. They didn't need to make that extra pit stop. Frankly, even if they did have to, I think they would have remained in the podium places. We2 Fast Racing in 4th, SimHQ in 5th, and then a lap down with Pneumatic, Static, 2 laps down. RD SimSport, huge disappointment for them. 2 crashes at Indianapolis denied them any chance, and the organisation Pro finished 8 laps down in 9th position. In the LMP2 category, Tempest SimSport won out 30 seconds clear of Penguin and RD, who had a fantastic battle for second place. Blue Shell Racing finished in 4th place, a lap down along with Longhorn Racing 200 Force and Sim Republic SR3, and the organisation Pro-Am and Sim HQ Red were 2 and 3 laps down respectively. And in the GT3 standings, it was 3 wins, once again similar to Tempest, with RD SimSport number 4 being able to take the race victory. Tempest SimSport, the 101 car, finished in 2nd place. Then it was Backpain and Eye Strain Racing Team. In the end, holding on to that 3rd position. They had a strong middle part of the race. We thought they might drop back near the end, but anything but really strong result in the end, finishing on the rostrum. Then it was Sim Racing PR Penguin RC Simulation 2-pay racing team, albeit they could get a penalty for an incident with an LMDH late in the event. Dog Bear Black were in 7th place, marginally above average sim racers. Disappointing for them to have dropped from 4th to 8th in the final hour of the race. Imperial Motorsports were in 9th, and there was Team Breakfade, Valhalla Motorsports, Longhorn Racing, and the organisation finishing 3 laps down. As we have a few drivers sorts of starting to filter in to our interview waiting area. Owen, who would you like to drag up first?
So I'd like to drag up the class winner here in LMDH for Penguin RC Simulation, Flynn Lazier as well. Flynn, congratulations to you and the rest of your team as well. Fantastic day for you guys, and yeah, tell us about your day in LMDH at Le Mans.
Yeah, we started in the pit lane because I had an internet connection fall through, so started last in the field, and I really only did 2 stints, so I think we got up to 4th or 5th when I got done, and then handed the car off to Blake, and Blake did a great job of just not making any mistakes, and it looks like P1 and P2 had some issues, and yeah, it kind of fell in our lap, but Blake did a great job, and whole team did a really good job, so yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Again, congratulations to you guys, and of course, Blake Reynolds as well, Infos as well. Blake, congratulations to you as well. How was your race out there today, and tell us about it from your perspective?
Great. Flynn handed it to me nice and easy, a very easy drive. I just maintained the gap. They all wrecked, and I got the win. That's how it happened.
Yeah, of course, the 2 instances from 2 instances from RD Sin Sport and Obsidian Racing Future, of course, made the P1 fairly easy for you guys as well. What was the reaction when you saw them to have them mistakes right in front of you?
Oh, I was like, oh my! And then I thought they were gonna tow, but he drove all the way back, so he lost like an extra 2 minutes in the lap. And by the time I saw him enter the pit lane, I had a 30-second gap. So I just kept driving. Last pit stop, I just overfueled, made sure nothing could happen to ruin our run to the end.
Yeah, for sure. And was to take us through the traffic as well for this round. Obviously, last round back in Fuji, it was more, traffic was more the dominant factor of the race as well in terms of position as well. But here, obviously, being in Le Mans and a really wide open track, it seemed a bit more easier for you guys out there.
Oh, for sure. Just obviously the straights, and there's lanes. It's a highway. It's real easy to pass if you have a driver's license. So shout out to Penguin RC for sponsoring the series and our race team. Good run for our LMP2 and the GT3. And obviously Flynn, my teammate here, is nuts. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, for sure, guys. And again, congratulations again on a very successful day here at Le Mans. Again, obviously, just shout out Penguin RC Simulation. But anyone else you'd like to give a thank you to on the broadcast here today?
Flynn?
I'm good. Thanks to Blake and Brian and everybody who put the race on. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to you guys again, and we'll see you back here for round 4 very soon.
All right, thank you.
So that was your winners here in LMDH for Penguin RC Simulation. And Sam, have you got anyone here waiting in the wings for having a little chat with us?
Well, when it comes to interviews, it's always a bit of a case of rolling the dice when it comes to who people are. I'm going to roll the dice when it comes to Wiggo and assume that this is Josh Wiggins. Is this Josh who has joined us now?
Yep, correct.
Excellent stuff. Well, congratulations, Josh. Really fantastic race for you guys. It just seemed completely in control. I mean, well, I know Steve, I imagine made your heart jump out a couple of times with those spins, but besides that, it seemed quite a comfortable Sunday drive for you guys.
Yeah, exactly that. Steve's pace was just fantastic. I think at one point in the race on 2 stint old, when we did the sort of squash stint tyres, he beat his qualifying time on a much hotter track temp. So just fantastic pace. And as the race went on, our plans evolved. I was going to drive more, but my pace wasn't there in comparison to Steve, so we gave him more time in the car, and I mean that might have contributed to the sort of spins or the issues he had at that one corner that I don't know the name of. I mean that pace meant that we had the space to make some, or a little bit of leeway I think we only picked up one slowdown throughout the whole race, which obviously was a massive factor to that too.
Yeah, of all the corners to have issues at, Arnage is a very good one to have because it's so slow speed that like you're not going to hit a wall or anything. You just do a nice pirouette in the middle of the circuit and then you keep on driving. So that was all good on that front. I mean, when you look back at the first half of this season, I mean, it's been an absolutely brilliant start for you guys. I mean, surely, I mean, let's face it, the championship is almost secured, especially with, you know, the mixed up order most weeks when it comes to the guys behind. Surely the aim now has got to be to get 6 from 6. What an achievement that would be.
I mean, never say never. Obviously, we go out and we want to do as best we can to bring in results. Yeah, I don't see why that can't be the goal. Whether it will be achieved or not, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, we've got one eye on the championship. Obviously, there's still a handful of races to go, and anything can happen there. And there's certainly fast teams that can challenge us on pace. So, yeah, definitely not over until potentially the last round. Just got to get there.
Definitely. Well, I'm sure that you'll perform just as well for the remaining rounds. Josh, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
I mean, yeah, Steve, my teammate. He made the job a lot easier than it otherwise would have been. And just to the team for sort of the prep work and the environment that we have there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in and having a chat with us, Josh, and best of luck for next time out at Motegi.
That's great. Thank you very much.
That was Josh Wiggins there for RD Sim Sports 4, your race winners for the third round in a row in the GT3 category.
Yeah, indeed. Great stuff by them. Great result as well to make it, 3 wins in the row from them now. And yeah, I have here waiting in the wings as well. We have Juan Segundo Valera as well from Obsidian Racing Future, who had a great start to the race with Pablo Estes and Juan, building up the massive gap that they did, but unfortunately had an instant round the last one as well. So Juan, tell us about your race from your perspective and your adventures of Le Mans today.
Yeah, like the comeback from the last race. Well, I'm kind of annoyed because Pablo had a huge gap at the start. And then I had a stupid mistake at the last chicane. I stepped on the dirt and I went straight into the wall, completely my fault, and like no traffic, nothing. And then it was quite entertaining, at least because we had to pit, and then we had to save for a whole lap, so like an extra lap in Le Mans, which is the second largest circuit in the world, I think. So yeah, we were like 4 or 5 seconds slower each lap to save, but we made it with, I think, 0.5 liters at the end. So yeah, it's quite annoying, but well, the opposite happened to us in Fuji. We were second by a huge gap and the first one crashed, so it was it balanced out.
Yeah, indeed. Again, what was the prep like for this race as well? Obviously, you guys had tremendous pace over the whole field as well. Is there anything you guys did differently to this round rather than Fuji or Daytona? Or was it just more just doing a whole bunch of laps and a bit more the strategy, or what was the key to the success that you guys had at the majority of the race?
Yeah, that's what the other thing, because we were incredibly on pace. We love Le Mans. It is one of our favorite circuits. So we were already on pace when we began. It's one of my the circuits when it comes to endurance that I race the most. And also we had a very good setup. We were, I think, fastest on the straights by a few kilometers. So yeah, it's a mix of liking the circuit and training a lot, and the setup. It was also very good.
Yeah, indeed. Again, shame to see you guys obviously have that end to the race, but again, fantastic domination at the very beginning, and hopefully you guys can keep up that form for the rest of the rounds yet to come.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to, anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, thanks to Pablo that helped us this race, and I'm sorry for messing that up.
Yeah, no worries, man. And again, good luck for the rest of the rounds, and we hope to see you guys at the front very soon.
Thank you. See ya.
That was Juan Segundo Valera there for Obsidian Racing Future. Again, yeah, great race from them at the very beginning, but yeah, such a shame to see them have that incident in the way that happens. You know, such a small mistake to make, but such a costly one in the end for them guys as well.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, you have to think that they would have won that race very comfortably and had almost as a comfortable race as a couple of our other class victors, and yet, yeah, as you say, just that small mistake and the race can turn ever so quickly. Next up, we're going to have a chat with a couple of our LMP2 drivers. Christian Youngwall joins us now, and we will also bring up his teammate John Marjorie Banks as well. Congratulations, guys! Really hard-earned race runners-up spots for you guys today. First up, John, how was the race from your perspective? I believe you started off the event, and yeah, how was it kind of dealing with the traffic and dealing with this Le Mans circuit?
Yeah, it was great. Christian actually started the race for us, and he handed it to me after 2 stints. So he gave me all the traffic to deal with, so that was fun. It's amazing how much rust you have after practicing 3 hours prior and then have to hop into a hot car and start racing. But we had a good stint. I was a little off the pace for the first few laps, and then had some contact with the GT3, which backed us into right up into the grasp of the P3 LMP2. So we were fighting with damage there, and we were able to hold off in front of him until the pit, and I gave it over to Christian, and that was where the chaos started.
Yeah, it was quite a battle. I mean, Christian, it seemed like you were pretty much just under pressure for the entirety of the last half an hour of the race, really. I mean, do you think you were faster than Ian? How would you assess it? Like, because it was very tricky for us to tell who actually had the pace, whether you were staying ahead via pace or whether you were just staying ahead due to racecraft.
I think we're pretty even in pace. I mean, we had a great finish. Obviously, the last like 30 minutes, we were within half a second the entire lap. And I think the main thing we were figuring out towards the end is we had a little less downforce, and we were noticing on the straights they couldn't quite catch up so much. But in the corners, they really had a turn-in ability that we didn't match. So I think we had a good split between our setups and stuff. So I think we were pretty even, and it obviously ended up for a fantastic finish. We both had unfortunate slowdowns lap after each other, so it just worked out that we had such a good battle. But I mean, I think overall we're pretty even, but it was so much fun out there. Tons of fun.
What was and to be fair, John as well might be able to verify this one. What were the words spoken when you picked up that slowdown? Because I can't imagine it was too good.
Some of them were crap. Other ones I shouldn't say. But overall, they were very. We were the motions on the lap for the slowdown. We just said, "Oh my God, it's over. We're done." And then right at the same spot, almost next lap, we're back 2/10 behind him because he got a slowdown, and all smiles from there. Like, "Oh my God, we got a chance!" And it just so happens that couldn't quite get the run on me, so it was just tons of fun.
It certainly looks like it. And well, looking ahead to the next round, John, we head to Motegi. Is that a car track combination that you've driven in the past?
No, actually, I've never even driven the P2 before this weekend. I was told I was driving as of Friday night, so lots of late nights the last couple days, and here we are.
Wow, well, that is a fantastic effort in that case, and well, hopefully we see you two pairing up for the remaining rounds, and yeah, best of luck for that. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'll give it a shout out to Brian over at Penguin RC for giving us the drive. Fantastic guy. Thanks for having us on the team.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for inviting us. A little late to the league this season, but happy we're here though.
Excellent stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, and yeah, best of luck for the remainder of the season.
Thank you.
So that was John Marjorie Banks and Christian Youngwall joining us there, finishing in the runners-up spot in the LMP2 class.
Yeah, indeed, a great race from them, and yeah, I mean, they're pretty much co-pilots for the whole entire race. Obviously, iRTES in spot number 3, who I want to bring in. Jared Bridwell, who was piloting the iRTES in spot 3 LMP2 as well, that was battling with the Penguin RC Simulation LMP2 for pretty much the entirety of the last few stints there. And Jared, what a great race from you, and Ian Peterson joins us as well. How was the race from your guys' perspective?
Oh man, it was such a blast. That I was on the edge of my seat the entire, last hour and a half of that race. It was something else. Ian did a phenomenal job, keeping cool.
Yeah, indeed. It was fantastic to see you guys battling out all the way through. And Ian, how was that battle from your perspective as well?
It was probably one of the most fun I've ever had in iRacing. It was just awesome being able to constantly be with him, and then the battles as well was just awesome.
Yeah, indeed. It was really, really close, really great to watch as well. You guys just pretty much noticed it out throughout the entire race as well. And obviously, we saw coming into the Milestone Chicane too that you guys had a little bit of a coming together there as well, when it resulted into you letting Christian back past you. Is that due to a slowdown, or is it due to more of like a gentleman's agreement kind of thing there?
It was, I'd accidentally just gone deep on the brakes and knocked him off, and I just went, the battle's good, I'm not having it end this way, and I felt bad, so I just let off to let him back through so we could continue with the battle and not have him at a disadvantage.
That's good. That's good stuff. What we like to see in league racing as well. And how was it managing the traffic as well during this battle? Because you guys were noticed out for the whole race, and of course this track isn't that bad for traffic, but through Porsche curves and stuff like that, how was it managing these GT3s and NVHs with the battle at stake as well?
It was difficult because of course I'm behind him, so I was having a bit of trouble seeing where the traffic was. So I just had to kind of follow him through and hope that he'd kind of gotten in the right place at the right time. So it was difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that as well. It looked pretty sketchy out there with most of the GT3s and some of the NVHs like binning into some of these corners as well. And yeah, it was a great race from you guys today. And yeah, anyone that you'd like to thank on the broadcast for the race?
Yeah, no, I didn't give anyone. Oh, go ahead, Ian.
I'd just like to thank the series, of course, for putting this race on, and I'd also like to thank Rob over at RD for allowing me to come back in and actually trusting me with the car, because I haven't done a race in about 6 months. So to allow me to come back in and just get stuck in with it straight away is really nice of him.
Yeah, for yourself, Jared, as well?
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out. Ian, first of all, I mean, the way he was able to handle it in that situation, it was he drove awesome. Give a shout out to Rob, all of you guys that make this happen. And then Alistair from the last race, I didn't give anyone a shout out. I want to give Alistair Kirk a shout out. He did phenomenal that last race. So, yep.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys drove a great race today, and hopefully we can see more of this into round 4 as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Cheers, guys. So that was RD Simsport drivers Ian and Jared there for the NB2 car. And yeah, it was just a great race from all of them, the 2 drivers today, especially the Penguin RC and RD Simsport drivers here today.
Yeah, it really was, and yeah, I think that battle towards the end, maybe the highlight of the entire race, but certainly the favourite battle in the final half an hour. I think we're going to have one more interview, and that is going to be with Vincent Marsh, who joins us now. Vincent driving for Back Pain and Eye Strain Racing and finishing in 3rd position in the GT3 category. Congratulations, Vincent. I mean, that is a hard-earned 3rd position and a strategy call that seemed to work really well for you guys, because I think you went for a slightly alternative kind of fuel strategy when it came to the, when to double the tires, double stint the tires, and it all seemed to work really well for you guys.
Thank you. It wasn't actually it was slightly alternative. We noticed we were keeping an eye out to see if anyone did the same thing we did. And it wasn't particularly a fuel call, despite the fact that we knew this was going to be a fuel mileage race. It was we felt a lot more confident making the tires last in the cooler temperatures, because of course the race is starting like at sun up and finishing around noon, right? So it was, when we doubled the tires, it was about 19 degree track temp, as opposed to the end of the race being about 28, 29 degree track temp. And yeah, I think it worked out for us. We were able to push the car for the entirety of that 2nd stint. And in the end, we didn't end up keeping up with them, but during the stint, we were matching pace with RD, which, I mean, obviously, at the end of the race, we weren't competing with them, but it's at least a nice takeaway to know that at the tracks that we think suit us, we at least have the pace to compete, right? For top spots.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, this is a big step up for you guys, because I mean, to fifth positions, I believe, so far this season. I mean, what would you say was the difference today? What was it, like you said, because this is a circuit that you're particularly strong at, or something different in your preparation? I mean, how can you explain this upturn of pace?
There's probably a couple reasons, but at the end, it all sort of falls under the umbrella of Le Mans generally suits for the BMW, and Le Mans is one of the tracks that we're really confident that we felt like we nailed the setup really early in the week, and we were able to just put time into just getting it to the point where we were able to just run consistently fast for most of the race.
Yeah, and your consistency was absolutely perfect out there. It didn't seem like you had really any setbacks whatsoever, and a brilliant third place finish. I mean, we head to Motegi next time out. I mean, you were saying how maybe Le Mans is a good BMW circuit. I feel like Motegi is a very different circuit to Le Mans. So, are you expecting the other GT3 cars to perhaps have a slight advantage when we visit there?
I don't know how it's gonna shake out, sort of in terms of which models Motegi's gonna suit. I know right now we're sort of, our concern is going to be tire wear there, because the BMW likes to chew through fronts, but we have I think an extra week compared to the prep time that we had for this race, and I think a lot of it's going to be sort of figuring out how we make those tires last and putting ourselves in a position to try and score some more points. I know our goal for this race to sort of try and keep ourselves competitive in the championship was a top 4, so I can't be too upset.
No, absolutely not. And that top 4 in the championship is looking very possible for you guys now. Just looking at the points. I mean, it'll be close. Basically, it'll be close. We knew we were sitting top 5 in the points, and if we wanted to sort of keep ourselves in contention for the second half of the season, we were going to need to pull out a top 4 here to sort of claw back some points and get ourselves in the mix with that top 4 there. Yeah, he certainly made up points on Sim Racing PR, so that is a very good start on that one. And congratulations on a really good result, Vincent. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
I know I gave a shout out last time to Minky, who designed our livery, but I'll do it again. And I've learned a little bit since last time, and I realized that I'd like to say thank you to you guys for putting on the broadcast, and thank you to David and the guys at CMS for putting together what's been so far a stellar series and season.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and we certainly echo those kind words as well to the organisation. Thanks for joining us, Vincent, and we'll see you back next time at Motegi.
Thank you, guys.
Vincent Marsh there, your third place finisher for Back Pain and Ice Train Racing, partnering up there with Vernon Road for P3 in the GTD category. And I think that's pretty much rounds us off, but some really fun events, some really good racing. I think just the quality of driving out here was so strong tonight in terms of the lack of incidents, in terms of how many cars managed to get to the finish. Clearly a lot of respect that these drivers have for one another.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see people from all different types of iRacing categories and iRacing as well. Obviously, Vincent Marsh being a very low iRacing compared to the rest of the guys here today, and still driving a stellar race as well. And even the guys at the top, like Obsidian Racing and RD Simsport, making them huge mistakes that are race-ending mistakes as well. So race of all sorts, and it was a pleasure to watch.
It really was, and of course, big thanks once again to our main sponsor, Penguin RC Simulation, for sponsoring the series. And if you're looking to get steering wheel boxes, button boxes, or transmission controls which are compatible with SimuCube, Fanatec, and VRS equipment, Penguin RC Simulation is the place to go. And of course, also thanks to simrace247.com as well, your go-to place if you want to get the latest updates in the sim racing world, delivering a variety of content to keep you informed about what is happening with all of our favorite hobby. But for now, from myself, Sam Fitzpatrick, from Owen Carr, and from Samuli Kumo, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next month for round 4 of the championship at Motegi. But for now, we will say goodbye, and we'll see you back next time.